Hey everybody, Brad here with one last check-in from the audio room as we wrap up the Dragon's Might with the little post-campaign Q&A that we did. When we started this show, we did it for ourselves. We all love storytelling and we all loved playing this game together. And so this was not only a way to challenge our whole concept of storytelling, but to make sure that we all spent time with the people that we loved. We didn't know what kind of reception it would get, which is why we've all been so blown away. To see that people were waiting to tune in every week, getting excited for Tuesdays, and leaving comments about things that they've noticed about the show along the way has been really humbling. So from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much. If you've been watching, commenting, or just listening along, thanks for spending your time with us and for helping us relive this story all out again. I would also be remiss if we didn't thank the incredibly supportive Wheel of Time online community, who have been huge in terms of helping us get our feet off the ground. Especially, I want to thank John from What Up and Anis from the Dusty Wheel, who both gave us their time and space to talk shop about this great series of books that we love, and to also sort of pitch how this little pocket of the Dragon's Might fits into this big, beautiful world. Without the support of their platforms, I don't know that we would have reached the same people that we did. So to them and to anyone who's shared us around, thank you so much for really doing a lot of the legwork for having this show be seen. Now, in keeping with that spirit, and since this is going to be the last of our Wheel of Time content for some time, I wanted to make sure that we didn't leave without shouting out a cool project upcoming that we thought was exciting. Jordan Rannells is a very, very talented composer and audio engineer whose new project, A Soundscape of Time, provides an audio companion for the official audiobooks of the Wheel of Time. Now what this does, if you sync them up, is give you, on top of the incredible narration that already exists, a really immersive cinematic experience where walking through the forest you can hear the sounds of wind rustling through the leaves. As you leave the two rivers, you can hear the moving score indicating the feeling, and you can hear great Foley effects that really put you into the scene itself. This is an incredible undertaking. I really can't underestimate that. I scored like maybe 2% of our entire podcast, and just doing a 3-minute scene was quite a task. So imagine doing that but extrapolating it over dozens of books. It's really, really a monumental task, and that's why Jordan has set up a Kickstarter, so that he can get the funding he needs to do this incredible work. Please check out his Kickstarter at the link below. There are a lot of really flexible tiers that you get a great final product out of, and can even get you involved in the creative process to an extent. I could really ramble on about the audio of it all, but then we would be here for probably another couple of hours. Suffice it to say, I think the work that Jordan does is incredible. You can hear some examples of the beginnings of the Wheel of Time at the links below, and please do check them out because I think this is a really incredible project. I've gone on too long, so I'm going to throw it over to Jordan. Other than that, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy this little 2 hours of us nerding out about our own story, and please do stay tuned for Jordan's very, very cool breakdown of A Soundscape of Time. Cheers.
The Wheel of Time audiobooks span over 450 hours. Now imagine if you could have the sound effects, ambience, and music of a film for all 450 of those hours. I'm Jordan Rannells, the creator of The Soundscape of Time, a unique audio journey through the Wheel of Time series. I believe Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time is a story of immense detail, complexity, and beauty, worth experiencing in as immersive a way as possible. That's why I've created The Soundscape of Time, a 3D immersive audio journey through these books. Stick around to the end for a full demonstration, but for now, what is a soundscape? Unlike traditional audiobooks that focus solely on narration, my soundscapes incorporate ambient environments, specific sound effects, and an original score. It starts by creating ambient environments for the many places we visit, like the simple everyday life of Emmons Field. Then you add specific sound effects for each moment. You'll hear the small moments like Pod and Fane pulling into the two rivers. Finally, we add an original score that I'll be writing for each moment along the journey through each book. Themes for Emmons Field, Rand, Egwene, and so many more. Creating such an immersive experience takes a lot of time, and by backing this project, you'll give me the time to make all these details as good and small and minute as they can be. But to kick things off, I'm really excited to announce that the Eye of the World, the Eye Collection, is actually already almost done. So shortly after the Kickstarter is finished, you'll have access to that as I work on The Great Hunt, The Dragon Reborn, and The Shadow Rising. By backing this project, you're giving me the one thing this series is all about: time. I want to handle each moment with care. Every small movement of Rand's cloak in the wind. How does the sound of Saidin compare to Saidar? What do Trollocs sound like? And so on down the list. It takes a lot of time. Alright, it's time for the demonstration. We're going to listen to the entire Dragon Mount prologue for Eye of the World, and it's going to include Michael Kramer's amazing narration. That'll come and go through different spots. I can't include the whole thing, of course, but if you want, you can combine the audiobook and the soundscape later nice and easily. So grab a pair of headphones, and you won't be able to hear the 3D elements without those headphones, so make sure you have them. Close your eyes and listen, and thank you all so much for your support. And what else can I say, but it's time to toss the dice.
Here we go. Wait, we're freeballing, baby. Hey, everybody. My name's Brad, and welcome back to Who's Taking Watch. I'm not going to be your DM today, because if you're watching this is just a sort of like informal chat on the end of our first campaign, The Dragon's Might, our story set in the world of the Wheel of Time, and this being sort of like not only the first time that we've run one of these just ourselves, but the first time I've ever finished arc as a DM, or period, kind of. Just sort of talk about like how we all felt, things that we saw as our characters, things that we saw as ourselves and couldn't see as our characters, and sort of like how like recording in this format sort of changed things. So we did prepare sort of like a little bit of a format that Michelle suggested from a home game that the rest of these guys all played, which was your Ravnica game, where all the PCs get to ask one question of the DM and one question to their fellow PCs. So we are gonna do that, because I mean we're out here rolling dice, so I'm gonna make you guys roll for initiative to see who gets to start. Do it. So everyone pick your favorite or nastiest D20. Your modifiers are, it would be really mean if I made us use the modifiers we made when we were statting out our real selves, because you dump statted your decks.
I still have those. I'll look them up.
If you have them handy, like super quick, we can do it.
I do.
Yeah.
How dare you bring them?
So for context, we all statted ourselves as actual real human beings.
Yes. And unfortunately, some of us have better decks than others, and it's just
we're probably level 4 at the very least.
So Zach, your dex was 8.
No one gets an ASI. We're a level 1.
Which is crazy to
Victor, yours was 14.
But I lost a race to him.
Mine was 16.
I used strength for it.
And Martin,
you did.
And Martin was 13.
Okay.
That's a +1.
I got a -1.
So.
Damn it.
Give yourself a roll there, Michelle.
Am I +3?
What's your dex?
16?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just I was trying to count it out.
I can't believe I let you talk it into having alert again, basically.
17.
Oh my god.
It was almost
17.
a nat 20.
Oh,
my dex is higher.
But you're more dexterous than
You know
me.
what?
You
This
start
isn't
everything, Michelle.
This isn't D&D. Roll off.
Please.
We all know this is not going to work to mine's advantage.
16.
Okay,
I'd like to
fine.
use a magical guidance
No,
to
no,
do
no,
that.
no.
If you couldn't use your alert.
Okay, so
Fair.
17,
If I could use my
17.
alert.
Victor, 12.
6.
That's about right, honestly. Yeah. Okay. So,
Dope.
Everybody
Michelle,
gets off running. I don't
you're
even
up
know the race
first.
is
Who
started.
you
Cool.
talking to? Who you want some details from?
Cool. I have a question. My very first question is for Zach.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Because
pressure's on.
you held Tal's heart in your hands for most of the campaign and then just managed to absolutely shatter it that last episode.
Oh no.
So my
good
question
start.
is, did you at all see a way to end this arc that did not involve your character's death?
When I
question.
first made the character, yes, I was like, oh yeah, like this is fine. I'm just gonna be like super cool and like we'll end off with like, oh no, Dirk's gonna go crazy.
Eventually.
And then like I think maybe
Yeah.
like a couple sessions in, I was like, oh, this guy has to die. Like
You know, it was a bit more than a couple. I think it was like around Johanna because I went to
Yeah.
pick you up that day.
yes, and we talked in the car.
I pick you up and you get in the car and you're like, do you see character death as a possibility?
Like, is that okay?
But I think it's like sort of like you had this idea of like, okay, yeah, and there's downsides and I totally get it. But then you start to realize like the real world implications, right?
Well, yeah, because like
Yeah.
we had talked about it, and I'm like, okay, well, I left my family when I was super young, thinking like, oh yeah, there's some channelers, and like it's a year process, whatever. But then like the people we're meeting, and I think you even saying like, people don't generally channel for years.
Yeah.
Like that's a crazy thing, and I'm like, I'm here thinking I'm channeling for like a decade already, and I'm like, okay, there's no way we could play with this character for like any longer than 20 episodes. Like, fudge that.
No swear jar for
No,
this.
yeah.
No swear jar
Absolutely swear jar.
for this one. No.
Here
No.
goes me and beers.
Stop the count. Yeah, I think it was like
Yeah.
I think it was before like a lot of like the physical consequences started happening too. I think I had like brought in sort of Larry's voice at this point already in
Yeah.
your head, but I think you were like, I don't think that like there's no way like bad things are happening when I'm channeling, you know?
And even if it wasn't like Zach deciding,
Yeah.
I don't think Dirk would want to be near any of you after like what he's starting to learn, especially after seeing John.
Oh yeah.
He's like, I need to get away from these people. Like, because
Going out on your own
I'm gonna
terms.
implode. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is funny though, because to your point, and you know, like talking about like I don't really see a possibility of like living out of here. Literally the day that we were filming the final session, earlier that day, I'm like driving to work and Zach starts messaging me. He's like, okay, we need to, what if this fight goes well for us and it doesn't make sense for me to, is that what
It's a
happens?
supernova.
What
Yeah.
happens? What are my possibilities if I survive? And we kind of like talked through all of them and we're all like, they all kind of suck.
Yeah.
Like,
Dirk
it's
living kind of sucks.
like you like hiding in a steading like for an indeterminate period of time
Yeah.
and like sort of just being in limbo when you've already like
Limbo, it means hanging out with Lior every day.
It would, yeah, but it would be like hanging out with Lior and his wife and his complete life where he's like doing everything and Dirk's like, I guess I'm gardening now. You know, like it would just, I don't think he'd do that for more than like a week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, be there for a day. It's been fun, Lior.
I honestly intended for Dirk to get a lot like, I don't want to say crazier because you played that really well and it wasn't even like a prompt for me. You just started to get a little bit dodgy one day, but like I intended for like the physical ramifications to be a lot worse, but like for the first like 15 sessions you rolled really well on that table every time you channeled something. So like you never did bad enough and it would have been sort of cheap for me to counteract my own system.
For me, it was
Yeah.
honestly perfect because like that's why I put Constitution up.
Yeah,
I think I did. Like,
exactly.
it was like Dirk has been like, he has the willpower to stop this. So like I would have hated, I just wouldn't have liked it if it was like every time I started channeling, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm like blowing
Yeah.
shit up and dying because like, no, I've been keeping it under control.
Well, that's
Yeah.
like
But that's-
when we were discussing your character concept initially, I was like, okay, and so like this just happened and you're on the run. He's like, I'd like to think that I've been on my own for 2 years. And I at first was like, no, actually in the world. And then I thought you had a really disciplined life in the military. There is, if anybody in the world is able to prevent themselves from channeling and have this disease progress, it would be like a child of the light who was really good at it, who has a lot of self-loathing because he's taught that he's like the worse than a monster, right?
Yeah.
But like, so to that point, like you were only able to hold it off for as long as you did because of a very specific upbringing.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. But no, like there was a talk like last day of like, does it make sense to live? And then we were both like, unfortunately not.
Yeah, not really.
No. Yeah.
Cool.
It's in that final like little speech between you two where you were like, you're like, oh, do you want to be spun out again? And you're like, is Tal gonna be there?
Oh, that.
And I was just like,
My heart.
oh.
that broke me.
I didn't mean to hurt you, Tal. I wanted to save you.
That broke me so hard. Yeah. Damn.
like,
Damn. The heartbreak king over here is so good. So good.
Willing to be hired.
Will break hearts for money. All right. Well, next in the initiative order, I guess.
I'll throw one at you, Brad.
Ooh, interesting. Interesting.
All right.
We'll see if I'm allowed to answer it.
So,
What?
knowing
For the sequel, of course.
no, it would be something that was an interesting theme, which was knowing both of our backstories. Did you anticipate more or less friction between
Bastard
Dirk
stole my question.
and Paige? Like when you
Oh,
were
man.
coming up with it, and
Yeah.
if the tensions grew to be more difficult than they were, did you have like a I wrote blindsiding team building activity?
More difficult? He was going to smite you at some point. I hope you know that.
We had
Yeah,
so
no.
many talks in the car.
Zach was like, this close to smiting Marty. This close.
No,
I'm like,
honestly,
Zach,
it's-
he has 21 health. You can't smite him. Not even as a joke.
We went to level 6 or 7, and
Yeah.
I think it was 8, and I was like, I might just take Mage Slayer because I'm gonna kill Paige in the last session.
I was doing numbers, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I think he has like 2 levels in fighter. Where's the smite at? Can he one-shot me? Okay, I'm gonna need to maintain some distance, but I need to be his friends. I need to cast haste.
Crazy. So
Which,
I
which
picked-
to answer your question,
Yeah.
made your behavior all the more baffling to me. So right away, like when you guys were coming at me with your character concepts, and I knew like with the stats you rolled, you were like, I want to play a caster. I was like, okay, here's how it would work in this world. You're like, totally. I could be like, not an Aes Sedai, but an accepted or something like, and so we figured out reasons why an accepted would be able to go on this mission, your particular skill set, right? And your initial character concept was like world-shatteringly. It would have been terrible conflict from day one because he wanted to play a guy who was like basically disguised self as a woman, and then the moment that he channeled in front of you, thinking like, "Haha, sister," he would have gotten blown up right away because he would have no idea that women can't see men channeling. And, so we walked that down, but. I knew there would be conflict with you guys, and that was like one of the things I was most excited for and also most afraid of, because I know, like, having not played much with you, Zach, before, but having played with the rest of you guys, I knew that, like, in general, we're like very much like role play,
very
first,
chummy and like, but also like usually we get along, right? We're all very friendly.
We all get along great, and like we've never really had too many like character conflicts, but like very committed to role playing, very committed to like this is what my character would do, and like
Marty as a general is very committed to secrets.
well, yes, committed
I
to
don't
secrets.
think
That's another thing. I've got questions from you about that later, but like it was. Expecting you guys both to dig your heels in. The moment that I thought like I'm gonna have to start rethinking some things was the on the road north when you like
swung at Paige. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, and at that point it
The
wound
white cloaks are coming. The white cloks are coming.
It wound up being well, yes.
That was so key.
But it wound
Well
up
done.
being really funny. But I was grateful for it in the moment that you didn't escalate.
Yeah,
Because you were like,
because
because if you had escalated, and then all of a sudden it's this thing, and everyone's going at each other, I was like, oh, we're screwed. We're done.
Yeah.
But your reaction of everybody be calm was helpful because it allowed me the chance to force you guys into a bigger threat. You know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
because conceivably, with both of your characters, there's no reason you shouldn't be eyeing you guys in that way.
That's right.
And then it was just like a point of, I think I did have a point where I was like, guys, we're getting to the city, and like I'm gonna need you to find a reason. I'm gonna provide like reasons like work related for you guys to stay together, but I am gonna need you guys to find reasons to continue to work together. And like you continuing to be the glue that bound everyone together. Michelle was like
Very cute.
so good. The moment I knew I was okay was the moment that you started the session when we got to Johanna with a joke. And it's like, well, it's been nice traveling. I guess we'll see you when we see you. I knew I was fine then because it was so flippant. But like to that point, like every combat thereafter, you guys were consistently helping each other out. You cast haste on Dirk.
Yeah.
Dirk was laying hands on you to bring you back, So I was super worried. But if that reaction had gone differently, honestly, what I was probably going to do was pivot and have one of the Aes Sedai come in way earlier and reveal themselves to be bad, and it was probably gonna be Lucille. Because the one thing that would break you hard enough to trust these people would be to take away the person who has instilled all these things in your
Oh my
mind.
god.
Oh no.
Yeah. So needless,
I didn't think the
needless to
campaign
say-
could get any darker.
needless to
would've
say,
been
I'm really
horrifying.
glad we didn't get there. But that was my out. That was my out, is having you meet up with Lucille and having her do something super dodgy and probably betray you.
Jesus.
And then you're like kind of on the run.
Wow.
I like good Lucille better.
Yeah, so do I.
much
You want to
better.
know the craziest thing? If that had happened, I don't know if I ever would have told the dragon about the sisters. Because that
Yeah.
would have been like too much betrayal. I would have been like, oh yeah, she got over. She's one of us.
Oh.
Yeah.
If that had happened, like
Yeah.
I don't think I ever would have ratted.
Well, that's the thing. It would have made you more like,
just, yeah,
It would have made
like,
you guys more on each other's side, but it
100%.
would have made
But it
your
also-
ending like you. I feel like you probably would have sent me a message like, "Hey, do you feel okay about PC deaths?"
No, it's funny because until I leveled up at level 7, I finally dropped the hold person, and I think at level 8 we could
The
change
whole person for Dirk.
for Dirk.
Yes. Yeah,
And I dropped
100%.
it's like the empowered spell where you force a disadvantage save.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I
didn't
had
even think
one
of
nuke for you that I was gonna do, and then I was gonna have to figure out something. But I always had that switch there
Yeah,
for me
because
in
that
case.
was it.
You know,
Because it
For
was
me,
so tense. Yeah.
I just needed to make sure I got one turn near you. I needed to
Yeah.
make sure you couldn't cast a spell or something, and I got one turn near you. But like,
Yeah.
if you got a spell off, I
Yeah.
was screwed.
I would have
it's
hated
the-
PvP,
yeah.
but I loved the tension of there being a possibility.
Well, I still think the funniest thing of all that was, stuff was gonna go down in that bonfire episode, and then you tell Tal, "Hey, stick with the Ogier." Like that's gonna
was
stop
so
anything.
funny.
No,
Yeah.
what was so funny too was that Dirk told Tal, "I'm not gonna hurt her," and so Tal was just like, "No, Lior, it's fine. He's not gonna hurt her."
Like the Joker. I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in.
But the minute Tal would have seen you hurting her,
Yeah.
she would have been fighting you.
100%.
Yeah.
Which
Which
is
is
why like,
nuts.
I had to go to like the extreme. Like it would have been where like I would have even not hit Paige with a sword after like I really tried to scare
Yeah.
her, but I might have like decked her in the face. Right? And been like, whoa, like Paige, like, or like,
Yeah.
Tal, I got this. Don't worry. Like,
Just punch someone in the face. Everybody settle down.
I know what I'm doing. I'm a
But
professional.
I did love that moment, and just like picturing like these people are traveling north. Oh, okay, we're all in trouble together. We got to go north. Well, this kid seems nice. At least, this grump over here, but the kid's nice. And I loved the immediate psychopath turn when you like threw the hand axe or whatever and just missed.
Yeah.
And then Paige was like, "What is this?" And you're like, I put my hand on Lior and I go, if he wanted to hit her, he would have. I was like,
yeah.
And I was sitting here being like, holy goddamn hell.
Because we'd been sparring
Yeah.
every morning.
I know, but like just the flip switch of like these guys are on the road and they're ready to defend themselves.
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, whoa.
We're strangers.
To
We're
me,
gonna thread their
that
lives.
picture is
Squire,
like
yeah.
That's a squire for
is
you.
so crazy, right? Because it's like you guys were like, yeah, we're all traveling together and like on the same team and like we're running from the law, and it's like we have a completely different page that we're on.
It's like
right?
just the different.
yeah.
Like, what's the word? Like, what you would resort to was completely different
Yeah.
to what we would
Yeah,
have
100%.
resorted to. It's like
I
we would have.
hadn't even fought or
Yeah.
raged or anything.
And I'm over here
argued.
You spent a combat taking people and going like, no.
yeah. Boom. Against the rock.
We would have
Yeah,
wrote you a
I smashed
stiff
his head into the
letter
rocks.
and then
Not
left,
leaving.
and
Yeah.
you were
Not
ready to
leaving.
just
Gently.
behead.
Yeah, no. So yeah, I loved the tension between you guys, and I think that was like honestly largely the thing that carried it being like a convincing party dynamic was the fact that it took so much to get you guys.
Yeah.
And then that like heartbreak of like you going like, I can't believe I'm the one who broke our trust. I was like, oh, that's just chef's kiss. It's,
I think this
wound-
whole thing was like my favorite part of the campaign.
yeah, it wound up
Yeah.
driving so much of the stuff. I loved it.
Yeah, no, it was cool.
Awesome.
Cool.
Vic?
Right. Ooh, that was it. Let's go back to something light.
Is
that, was
any?
that was a deep dive.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, it'll come up. Like, question for Zach. Nothing for Paige. Nothing for.
Interesting.
Question for you.
Yeah.
because you had to put up with a lot of our shenanigans.
For sure.
Sometimes off the cuff.
Yep.
Was there something that you improv'd that you feel the most proud of?
Ooh.
Because you had an idea
Honestly,
of the story.
There
but
was
then there's...
so much of this, so much of the stuff like came up sort of on the fly, and even if I didn't mention on the fly what it actually was, I was like sort of planting the seeds for. Like I knew I was building up you guys to be like going back up north, and then I was like, it would be funny. Like Sword Guy ran off at the end of that first fight. And I was like, he's somewhere, he could be nowhere. And then, when we were in Johanna, I was like, it would be really funny if like he somehow beat them to the Dragon's Camp and is already there. But it was only that first interaction with you guys, meeting him there. That's where like the mental seed of, he's giving info to Larry. Larry's the one who took him in outside when he was freezing in the wilderness and they were chasing you. He's the one who grabbed him and said, you're in trouble with the light, but you can help me, So that's not really an answer to your question, but those are the things that I'm proudest of, are the things that I'm like thinking of in the moment.
Yeah.
In terms of like improv things that I'm proudest of, honestly, most of them are dumb jokes.
Wait, it wasn't that like whole battle in the hotel we were not supposed to go to?
Well, figuring out a way to get to that battle and like end the session, I was pretty happy with, because then it gave me time to plan that. And I thought that was like one of the cooler battles, because like it was like forced exposition too, but like it was still interactive. Like dumb jokes, I'm such a huge sucker for. When I had Dal say his singing names my ears,
that was a good one.
I was very happy with that. In terms of things that were like truly improvised, man, it's so hard to say because we filmed this over like 6 months, right?
Yeah.
A lot of characters, I think. I wound up being super happy that I put in. That whole scrambly session at the end of
was what's her name?
Gertrude?
full improv.
Oh, yeah,
You're
that
right.
was-
Actually, thanks for bringing it up. That's my favorite improv. The Gertrude flirting conversation with you.
Excellent.
You were just like flirting with her so hard, and she's like, I look outside of my tidy little life inside the walls. I was pretty happy with that. But yeah, characters are usually what I'm happiest with improving. Like I wasn't planning for Chapstack to be like a dark malevolent force, but it wound up being fun that way because we needed fun.
Like all the brothers, for instance.
All the brothers were pretty much Cyrus and Otto were like on the fly, full made up. And then I realized I should do it for the other ones. But characters, connective tissue, I'll call it, because the characters that I already knew were gonna played a part.
Yeah.
But like when I was scrambling to figure out what to do, when you guys were like, "No, we want to stay at that inn," and I realized you had to, I threw in that little kid.
Thaddeus.
No, it wasn't.
Was the little...
Some other kid. I can't.
A little.
Yeah,
Don't say it.
I can't even remember his name, but
Richard,
like,
I think that's what I was saying. Richard.
but the other little kid who wound up then being a messenger and sending things back and forth.
Yeah.
Tad, once again, improv. Not the first child Tad that I've thrown into a campaign. At the start in Daggerford, at the start of our campaign, I had there be a little kid named Tad who was riding around on Kome's shoulders.
Yeah.
Yes.
Amazing.
Wasn't he
but-
Jose Cuervo or something?
No, that was a different
That was
one.
another kid. Wow,
They worked at a
Bradley.
distillery and they were all named after liquor.
That's right,
But
that's
no,
right.
so like all the little connective tissue characters, like a Gertrude, who could be like, "Oh, I saw someone here, and you could tell me information if you look me in the eyes."
But it was who is it, honey?
That was, thank you for that, because you're like, he'd like to look inside. Who's there? We have to be quiet. So I'd say like the little connective tissue characters that make it feel less like the railroad that I've written out in a huge Google Doc, and more like they are plausibly interacting with people they're just running into. I'd say that for me.
I think the craziest thing to me is that it doesn't feel like a railroad.
It didn't.
No?
It just
yeah.
It didn't.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, roll for intimidation.
well,
right?
now it does.
Comment yes if you agree that it wasn't a railroad.
No, I would agree. I was gonna say like
Yeah.
that's what I find that's gonna be interesting like going forward is like how we do that, because like it didn't feel like we were railroaded. It felt like, we had these conversations before. It was like, hey, we have to kind of just go with some things and we're gonna have to know and pick that up. I think we all did a good job of being like, oh, the next place to go is here. Like,
yes,
but also
just don't go too far off, right?
Yeah,
Like,
you were good at incorporating our characters' goals to get us to places as well.
It
It
felt
wasn't
natural. It
like
felt natural. Yeah.
Except for freaking Lior. I step into the Waygate Lior.
that was sick. That was sick as hell. But no, I think like there was.
I'm not supposed to do this. I'm gonna do it.
The haunted tavern was, I think, I felt a switch flip for me because like very much like I'm all about in our home game too. You guys all gave me a very specific list of goals that your characters have, and I'm like incorporating all those, and so I was doing all that, but then I'm also thinking of it on my schedule, and that was like. Sort of, I'm thinking like, okay, schedule. I want to finish this in like 15 sessions. Haha. But I'm like, okay, and now they have to do this, and I planted the seeds for the furtive frog, and then I hilariously misstep by saying an inn's haunted and being surprised Pikachu face when you guys all want to go to the haunted. But like, I remember that because I was like. Listening back to it was so funny because I'm like literally fighting you guys. I'm like, you can't stay here, and then the city's like, unfortunately, no one's allowed to stay here. And then you guys left that
Just go to the frog.
Then you guys
Just go to the
left
frog.
that. Then you guys left that interaction. You're like, I understand. Legally, we're not. Yes, of course. And then you guys, the guard leave, and you guys are like, so we're all totally gonna stay there, right? And then at that point, I was like, okay, they're gonna stay there. And that was the point for me when I stopped worrying about scheduling. I stopped worrying about getting you from A to B, and like. I was asking you guys, like you said, like, trust me, like, there's going to be some things that we just have to roll with. But then I realized I have to trust them, too, that you guys know this.
Yeah,
are like,
exactly.
I don't think it is insane for me to do this thing.
Yeah.
So that...
I fully thought you wanted us to go there.
No, I know, because then...
I was sure.
I'm with you, man.
I was like, there is no way
like,
that he
there
would
was-
keep outlining this inn if he didn't need us to go to this
You know how
inn.
you can tell that it was fully improvised? Because I ended the session with a thumping on the ceiling, and then the next session you guys fought a ghost. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
It didn't make noise.
Someone's in there moving chairs and
Yeah,
desks.
No, it was the guy.
Stav. It was
That
Stav.
was also
But that
hilarious.
wasn't what I was. It wasn't Stav thumping the ceiling at all.
Yeah,
that was
no,
just me.
100%.
I ended the session somehow making a noise, and then I spent the next week. I'm like, I hope no one notices that. That doesn't make much sense at all. But yeah,
But
the improv.
I think that's what makes it feel so much more alive and dynamic.
Yeah,
is
for
that,
sure.
like,
For sure.
We
Then
could
it
take
sh-
any decision, and it would like bring us
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah, because it's
that
like
was
it's
still
that part in a
aligned.
choose your own adventure book
Yeah.
that's like, if you want to do this, like, go that way. If you want to instead go to the kitchen, go here, and then you turn to the kitchen page and it says the kitchen is closed. Turn back to the last.
That's
page.
right. That's right. Yeah.
So I like that
the
was the
illusion
moment
of
that
choice.
I felt myself becoming that, and I was like, you know what? No. So yeah, I would say that was like the biggest improv moment.
But it led to great moments like Stav 1 and Stav 9.
Yes,
I don't know.
Yeah, staff being a thing, and then again, that was like just a funny mistake, I think, in like understanding, because I said like, unfortunately, if no staff is present, no one can stay here, and I think Martin was like, guys, he said if that guy Stav isn't here, we can't stay here. So I was like, so he has to be there for the fight. Like, so little things like that, like, being able to like incorporate that instead of being like, sorry, just going, write that down, so being it helped me a lot, like being on camera and being forced to not be like actually really helped me like roll with the punches more, I feel.
I'm just thinking of that scene where the dude lost his eye and Michelle just could not understand. But he had an eye before. No!
Yeah. But
Scream.
but he didn't have an eye before, right? No. I thought he maybe just had like an eye patch. I'd tell you if he had an eye patch. I would lead with eye patch.
Like that's stuff you can't plan. Like that is
it's great.
Oh my god.
It's great.
So good.
Zach, Initiative 6. We made it. The strength build.
See, now here's the thing. There's only two. Have any of you been asked questions?
No, but 2 questions have been asked of me. That's
MVP. So I have to choose between any 3 of you. All right, I'll shoot them all at Marty. Marty, 1.
Just like
How
your
dare you.
character.
Not a
2.
question.
Why are you the way that you are?
That's a question. That's gonna take a lot of.
Not one I
time.
feel comfortable
That's
answering.
Are you referring to my HP again? Because I don't know.
We're gonna have to call his therapist.
Also, he's not talking about Paige. He's talking about you.
Yes.
No, that's not gonna be my questions. I have to actually erase them now.
I mean, if you could answer those, that'd be great.
I'm gonna choose essay format. I'm gonna get back to you with that.
But I'm gonna choose Michelle because you asked me a question that I kind of didn't. You asked me a question that I felt about.
This is so in character. Just give Martin and then pivot to talk to Michelle.
I'd like to know how Tao felt, but I really want to know how did Michelle feel that as the campaign started, Dirk and Tao were like best friends and kind of inseparable, and by the end of it, like
Lior and Dirk were best friends.
I will fight you.
but I was basically avoiding you, right? Like we talked about the beginning that like I reminded you of your old mentor, but at the end of it, I was this like channeling psycho that was nothing like your mentor.
So, Tao knew and understood why you were pulling away, because one of the last, not the last session, but one of the last sessions, Tal had made a point of saying, well, your insanity has shown, so we know it's not going to be long now. Mm-hmm. And Michelle didn't know whether or not anyone was going to say, what are you talking about, insanity? And then Tal would be like, he's talking to voices, guys.
Yeah, I've known this for forever.
And not like it's a problem.
Yeah.
But to Tal, the fact that that was said out loud and then kind of nobody reacted, Tal accepted and is just, and Michelle too, we're both really heartbroken that we never got to address that before Dirk died. And so
that was like one of the last conversations.
Yeah. One of the last true conversations was, well, when are you going to start losing control? Because your insanity has already shown. And Tal never got to say, look, I see you pulling away and I know why. And I want you to know that I still love you.
Yeah.
And that kind of breaks me a little bit too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're real people and I can tell you that now.
Yeah, thanks, friend. That makes me feel good.
Yeah.
There was one quote that you said that was like,
I get it
I
now.
I don't, when you talk, I don't know if it's the insanity or if it's you.
Oh,
And
man.
in the moment, I didn't realize like how like harsh that line was.
killed
And when I
me.
was listening back to it on my own,
Yeah.
I was just like,
Yeah.
and you were just like, and like you visibly kind of deflated
I
for a
literally,
second.
I think I even narrated, I'm like, Dirk has to cry at this. I'm
Yeah,
like, Dirk
yeah,
sheds
yeah.
a literal tear. Like,
Yeah.
that's the saddest thing he's ever heard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you see Dirk deflate.
I'd rather you stab me like my brother did than tell me that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
But like,
Because it still shows love and caring and a desire to support.
yeah.
but it was like,
But
it was also like the whole idea of like you sort of left home thinking, I'm gonna go out and see in the world and have the adventure I wanted, and I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna do great things, and I'm gonna lead a group of the army, and then it's the pivot from I am leading a group and I need to think tactically, you know, and so like you had to like not marry those two feelings.
You have to choose one.
But like I just remember being like, oh, this is like so heavily invested in the character, and it's so sad that this is the conversation, you know.
It's really interesting too, though, because very early on in the episodes, maybe like episode like 7 or 8, somewhere in there, when we really started getting a handle that Dirk is straight up channeling, on our drive home, Martin looked at me and was like, how's Tal gonna kind of relate with that? Because Tal, like, out of the gate, straight up murdered a guy because he was channeling.
Yeah.
And I was like,
That was
figure it out.
That was moment number 1 in that session 2, and you're like, and I shoot a dart at him lethally, and I was like, okay, and everyone's going, ooh, and inside I'm going, I wonder how Zach
I wish I'd
feels.
been able to narrate that a little better, because in my head, it would have been like almost like Tal had wanted it to be non-lethally, but her hand betrayed her. Because all she could hear in the back of her head was,
Boys don't channel.
boys don't channel, boys don't channel, boys don't channel.
Yeah.
That would have changed it
and that
significantly.
would have
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's how Tal was living in that space,
Yeah.
but I wasn't able to verbalize that in the moment.
Which is
Yeah.
funny.
But that was like
the
one of our
first thing,
first sessions. where
Yeah.
we were
Yeah,
just
that
all-
was the first
the
combat.
first thing I said after that happened was, we
don't
don't
do
kill all
that.
channels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we don't kill.
Yeah.
And
We give him a trial.
we give him a
We
chance.
give him a trial,
Yeah.
and Tal was like, okay, I can do that.
And I think like 12 episodes later, I was like, we kill all channelers. We don't give them a chance.
You're 100% correct.
Yeah.
Setting that was after our car conversation.
Yeah, that's hot.
But that kind of does lead me into one of the questions I wanted to ask you guys, which is like really on a technical level, because I think somewhat we were all aided by this being like post the year of Zoom. Or like year and a half of Zoom, like even just ourselves, we had all played on Zoom a couple times, playing the Kobold one shot, playing my stupid Christmas one shot.
So good.
But like, it was helped, I think, being able to like look at a screen and like talk to like a camera, even though that's not what we're really doing. We're never really like out pandering and playing to the camera, or at least trying not to. Every once in a while I catch myself while you guys are talking, just look directly at the camera and then look away really fast and hope no one sees.
Like, oops, excuse me.
Yeah. Oh, that's jarring. That's bad. But like, how did like sort of did you guys feel any like sort of like changes in the way that you were playing, or like things that you were wishing like, I wish I was like more like settled in because we were in front of mics, because I know you felt totally the same being in front of a mic, Martin.
Just muttered the whole time. It was
Whispering
fine.
like he was at home. But like being in front of a mic, being like lights and camera, having a time restriction. Like, did you guys feel like there was any sort of change in the way that you played things, or like did you feel that there was and then until there wasn't? You know?
I've become intensely aware of how much I yawn
Yes.
as a consequence of this, because I'm just trying to hide all of my yawns
As a tired
all
teacher,
the time. As a tired teacher, I'm
See,
just like,
it's part of your identity.
I'm not even hiding a yawn. I'm just like eating my knuckles all the time, and I'm always leaning towards the camera, so it's super huge. Sorry.
It's crazy, like watching back at some of these sessions. Like I'm just sitting here being like, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
It's good. So, and we're just waiting. I'm like, holy cow!
You
I
look
just
back.
don't stop moving. So, like, that's been really hard to do, is watch yourself do that. But
Yeah.
like in terms of playing, no, I don't. Maybe I would have sworn a bit more, but I think by the end of the session,
I think we
that
did.
caught up
I
to
think
me.
we did a pretty good
Yeah.
job anyway of that.
Yeah,
So
I think we
shout
did.
out to Charity.
It was interesting. Like the adjustment was like having a couple of those like rules where it's like, don't swear. Also, speak clearly. Also, don't take too long. Also,
Yeah.
make sure you're clearly engaging
Yeah.
the person to make sure there's like a dialogue that you can follow. So it was just like having a couple of those, building that framework was a bit, took some getting used to. But it
Yeah.
wasn't super bad.
No, and like we did like a couple of like test things, like your Kobold game.
Yeah.
I ran a little 4 session arc just so that like I'd be used to sitting in this chair and like running things in a non-scrambled way, or a theoretically non-scrambled way. But like we had time to work out some of the kinks, but I feel like like there would be, for the start of the first, I want to say like 5 or 6, until we got to Johanna, really. I want to say that like the start of sessions, we would all be like,
Yes.
The funny thing is
Oh,
watching
yeah.
back and looking at the intros when I'm like, hello everybody, and you guys are
yeah.
just silent, Yes, very much that
Dirk.
posture. But like there
Very
would
Von
be
Trapp
moments
family settings.
Like the
within
persimmon.
there would be
When the-
moments within every one of those episodes when we would drop in. It was the persimmons when we
the
realized that
first
Zach
episode.
didn't know what a persimmon was. That's when we all, for that first session, went,
Yeah.
comedy.
It was just a matter, and it always took less and less time until, and like for me personally, like I've done a bit of acting, but theater only, and it's a much clearer, like starker division of like I'm out performing. I'm
on
obviously
stage,
like
I'm
on a
behind,
stage,
I've done this much acting.
Exactly, but like
I went to
being
half a
in,
tryout for my high school drama club.
Nice.
being in front
I
of.
left.
I figured by the half a try.
What does that mean?
I was like writing notes for myself at first, like you're on camera, like pretend like you're acting. And what ended up happening was me being a lot more wooden, especially like in the intros. Like I was like, okay, more enthusiasm. And I look back on like the first couple sessions, I'm like, hello. I'm not even clapping. I'm just going, hello. And welcome to Who's Taking Watch. By the end of it, we're messing around before we start. You guys are still laughing at some dumb thing somebody has said. And I go like, all right, 3, 2, 1, hello. And like, at that point, I'm not even trying to like be on camera. I'm just sort of like running with a gag. So
Fill into your flow
yeah,
state.
I think the funny thing is that I was trying to adjust too hard to being on camera, that it became obvious that I was trying to do that until like I let go of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Same,
Yeah.
same, yeah.
Yeah. So that was the thing, and like I was like super harsh about because like our audio setup wasn't what we wanted it to be at the first couple sessions. I was sending you guys like novel messages going like, guys, we need to speak more clearly and we need to engage in conversation. And then eventually we all just sort of, I think, especially me, just like chilled a little bit. It was way better.
I tried to get closer and closer to the mic until I realized, like, I think I'm too close to the mic, and you're like, no, you're fine.
Yeah.
Yelling at
It
the
usually
mic.
becomes honey.
I would actually love you to consider just talking instead of whispering, instead of getting close. But you know, we do what we can with what we got.
I don't know why. It's just like I'm just so.
and it's
petty.
always
You're
us.
You're
It's
such a
always-
secret
yeah.
goblin. You're such a secret goblin that
I just
like,
want to keep my words and my secrets to myself. I
Yeah.
don't know. But it's true. It was usually when I was talking to you that it was we started mumbling and speaking.
Well,
in
because
very
you
low
match
voice.
each other because you're
Yeah.
brothers.
Yeah.
I think the funniest.
And I think it's because like the character is like soft spoken.
yes.
And then you're just a whisper character, so then we just see how low we can go before
Like
Zach
this, like,
hits me in the
spiral.
back.
Fucking,
I think the funniest there's like a couple of moments of reckoning where like you just see me like all I mean throughout the whole thing. Whenever you guys started having a quiet conversation, you see me go like this. And look at my screen. But there was one really funny moment. I can't remember
Where we
what.
were all like,
Well, there was that, and we actually like it happened on camera, and we were like,
Yeah, Zach like rubbed my back,
rubbing your back.
essentially.
No, but there was one.
I was like
really
nudging
funny,
him, like speak
There was
up.
one really funny one where the two of you are talking, having some post-mortem about something that's happened, and Victor's like, I think I'm just gonna look at Paige and say, Paige, you know what's going on is, and what's really happening is, you know, so that's why like the way I'm talking really soft. So and like you were talking as yourself in a normal volume, and then
You're just
you were
over
like,
there.
and you were like, and I was like, okay, that's fine. Now get to the meat of what you're gonna say. He's like, we are the fun people of the woods. It's so funny, but like I realized late enough that like I could scoop all that in post. Who cares? You know, I'd rather we're all comfortable.
Big shout out to our man Bradley here, who does 100% of the audio setup. None of us know how to
Yes.
do it, and he
Yes.
does everything in post. So,
Hey, man,
my
that's,
guy.
The magic comes from
That's
Brad.
the
My
power
guy.
of having several mid-local metalcore bands that you have to do demos for, so you know a little bit how to use Reaper. Yeah,
Huge.
yeah, and it, you know, I figured out a lot of stuff by doing it, so you know, learning experience for me.
Travel
There you
with
go.
me.
This whole arc has been a learning experience on
Colossal,
So many
right?
levels.
everything.
All right, reverse snake, Zach.
I have another one.
Zach, I hate to put you on the spot. We're going reverse snake.
I've
You're
already had
back
two
up.
questions from you though, so pick
Just
on someone
thinking
else.
of that Tad comment where you're like, can he fix this in post?
I can't really make out what they're saying. Hopefully they can bring up the volume in post.
Oh, love it.
Desperate Tad voice.
Yeah. Oh,
All right.
Tad. Good old Tad.
I'll make this one a better question, but I'll ask this one first. To Mr. Leor over here.
Okay.
After signing on to traveling with Dirk and the Dragon, did you expect Leor to make it home at the end of the campaign?
Ooh.
No, which is what. Well,
Which is
I
why you
wasn't
wrote the
sure.
letter.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
It was like a coin flip, which is why I took the time to like write that letter. It was one of those things where like Bradley was dropping these seeds that I have a fiance and like sending me gorgeous letters, which I didn't interact at all with for like 3/4 of the campaign, and then I walk into a waygate, almost die, and I'm like, maybe I should do something about that.
I have a family.
Well, the funny thing was, like, when we're starting, you're like, I mean, we're people of nature, so like, is there like a system where like I can send letters via nature? I'm like, no, like, there's no Disney princess rules. I think I told you, I was like, if we're having like an insane off the walls episode, I will let you roll nature to send a letter with a bird.
Yeah,
like just in nature. But like, it was also like, yeah, man, there's correspondence here, but like a very difficult time and very specific set of circumstances that will let you receive them. So it's hard for you to send them back too.
Yeah.
No, 100%. So that's when I was like, I should write a letter in case I die.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and then at the end I had something like, if I die, I die, and if I don't die, well then I'll have something in case we get to an end where Leor makes it back to the steading and
Well,
gets
I mean,
to-
you did me like the hugest solid in the world, because in my mind already at this point, I know Dirk is probably going to die. You know, the question of whether it's in vain or not is still out there. But I'm also going, this is going to be such a hard thing to end on a positive note. Like, how are we going to do that? Everyone's going to be so
I tried, Bradley.
to save Dirk.
need to
No, I tried to stay with him.
Oh no, he would never let you stay with him.
that wouldn't
He was
fix
telling me.
anything.
He was
That
telling
would be
me after
different.
how close he was to casting 1,000,000 spells on you.
so
that
many.
would have made
tried.
that would have made it sadder. But it was more like what after that combat. If the 3 of you all survive, what is our? If only 2 of you survive,
Yeah,
if
like,
only
what
one of you
happens?
survived, it would have been a bummer, no matter what.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Victor said like, hey, I know like I haven't really interacted with any of the letters you've sent. I'm gonna write one back to her to send away. I didn't even know that he was gonna try and accompany Dirk. I didn't know that until the session, and that's another one of those moments I'm like, you can't do that. And then I was like, okay, fine. but like,
It
was
jerks.
but it was also like, he says, I've written this letter, but I've also written vows for a wedding.
dear.
Because I was asking you guys, like, think about like what you would want to do after. Like, it's gonna be a couple of scenes, you know, like what's your month after? What's 3 months? Where do we see you in 6 months, you know? And so when you hit me with that, I was like, thank God I could bring everyone back. By this point, I've already brought Tad in. I've thought, how can we make your journey south even worse? Or you know, or like actually good? Because like the only other thing would be like you stop in and see Dal, and that's like your positive thing, you know? But I was
Yeah.
like, that's weird, you know?
At first, I was gonna stop by your uncle's place, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Sad.
I can't
Also
deal
sad.
with that. Yeah.
Also
I was
sad,
like,
you know, like,
sad.
I was
so
like,
I was
Because like I already had a goodbye. I already
Yeah.
told
Yeah.
my
but he
aunt,
thinks
like,
you're coming back one day, and I'm like,
It's
do I,
better
I'm
that
like,
he
you know
think
what?
that, man.
It's better that he
Let
clings to
Chapsack
hope.
tell
Yeah,
him.
so like it was very much like the what can we do that is like a fun ending, and it was like we can bring together everybody here. You know, I didn't want to kill Sammy because realistically, if Sammy goes off with the army, that army gets routed, and Logain is basically the only survivor who's kept alive. You know, maybe people flee. But I didn't want to just ham-fist, like I rolled at the start of that game to see what would happen, and I rolled a 19, so Sammy lived, but also
19 is right beside 1.
Yeah.
it was a scary roll too. It was teetering.
Was it the
But
spicy die?
it was of course it's the spicy dice. But and then it was like, okay, this gives a good out for like he probably needs to just like reset somewhere, you know, like he sort of has PTSD from being in the military. He can't do that, but he feels bad being at home surrounded by his family, but he doesn't want to ignore his family. But where can he go that's just calm? +1, you know?
No, it was a beautiful
Yeah.
ending that I wish I was like, once again, improv. I'm like, great to have you, Sammy. And then I just walked away from him.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
it was, you really thought of cool ways to tie all the loose ends together.
There's the perils of improv too, though, because like I accidentally did the persimmon thing too soon. I wanted that to be at your wedding, but we were going on so late that I was like worried that we wouldn't get to it.
Yeah.
So like I brought it up again later. I was like, I wish that had been the first one. Then I definitely would have cried on camera at my own thing. Yeah.
Isn't it beautiful?
But yeah, no, you were very much ready for whatever happened.
Yeah, so like I was
Nice.
not sure I was gonna make it back. I still think I'm still so heartbroken that like literally the only other humanoid that Lior killed aside from Brodeen was your brother, and as he's doing that, he turns around to see Dirk
Saying goodbye. Yeah.
just like
Man.
It's true. As he's like, now Dirk is safe.
now Dirk. That was literally Lior's entire mission. That fight.
Yeah.
He turned down fighting the shadow to
fight,
protect
yeah.
Dirk from like
Don't worry,
his.
I got the shadow.
Oh, you
Not how teamwork
works.
He outshone it with the light. Well, take that angry energy and ask your question.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Back at you. So my question, it's something that like I've always been reticent about, kind of going into something which I feel is a little bit tropey at times, of like characters dealing with mental illness like schizophrenia or hearing voices, bipolar,
yeah.
things like that. But people sometimes do it without necessarily having lived experience with it, and it can I don't know, it can leave sometimes a bad taste in people's mouths. I thought your rendition of talking to the voice was like so incredibly I don't know, interesting. Like it felt authentic in its own way.
felt
And at one point you
respectful.
screamed and I jumped in my chair because you were just like,
That was
I'm talking to him. And I'm
That
like, ah!
was so good, just unprompted, you know? Like, that was so good.
It was so funny too because I was like, okay, I'm gonna scream in like 5 seconds. I can go this way, but I'm like, then the camera won't see me, and maybe the mic won't pick it up. Double mic this way, and then I yelled, and I was like, I forgot to warn Victor.
But I was looking at these guys. I'm just like,
Yeah.
this is really good scene. And then I'm just like, hard shot.
It probably would have been just as scary if you like squeeze his thigh and then scream at him. Double spook.
It's that Dirk moment where I lean in and he punches me, just squeeze the thought. He just
I like Dirk's reputation.
yeah.
But no, I mean, like, that was a lot of fun, yeah.
Whose idea was it to bring in that voice? Was it yours? Did you know going in that there was going to be a voice, or was it just kind of?
Really, we had talked about it a little bit about like
Yeah.
what happens with people who have this at the taint. First of all, we did not say that nearly enough in the campaign because
And
I
I-
would have laughed so much.
I
more.
think what is the show
Use-
call
at
it? They
one
call it
point-
the corruption or something like
no,
that.
but
Like,
Bradley, at one point you said you tasted the taste.
yeah. yeah.
I've never had
I have
this.
I mean, to be
tasted of
fair,
the tape.
I was goofing at that point, but I didn't even have that connotation in my head. It's just I said it out loud immediately. I was like, wild. I have tasted of its taint or something like
Oh
that.
my god.
Yeah.
No, but I don't. I remember that like early on,
Yeah.
I just thought like, okay, maybe I'd have some physical things, or Bradley might put like an illusion in my way, or like maybe there would be
Yeah.
a voice, but like whatever. Like he'd text me things, and I would like just role play it, and I can't remember when it was.
Michelle drinking on camera?
Yeah, I was like, what is that?
It's ginger ale. I'm having a hard time, okay?
I was like, that is the loudest tea I've ever heard in my life.
I really thought it was going to be quieter.
No.
I thought the loudest part was going to be opening the can.
I didn't even hear that part.
I didn't even hear the can.
I know.
I muffled it with my shirt.
But no, like I think I don't even know what session it was.
I think, yeah, it might have been like 3 or 4 or
3 or
something
4.
like
It was
that.
early on, and I was just like, "What are we doing about this? Like,
Yeah.
what are your symptoms?" Like, I even told him, I said, "I don't mind. You could throw anything at me because
Yeah.
I don't know how this manifests. So like, you take the first step, and we'll just go with it."
I think I kind of just like threw it at you. Like
Yeah.
during character creation, you were saying like, you know, so like, what are the ramifications if I'm a man who channels? I was like, well, I mean, like it manifests itself in different ways. I think that's one of the things that the show does the best job of. Like the first scene of the show rules. It's
Interesting.
it's a man running away from like a bunch of the Red Aja, and it's 2 men running away, and he's like, keep going, they're catching you, like they're gonna catch us, which way? And the guy in the lead goes like, to the left, I know it's safe their way. He's like, I'll always trust your lead. And then he's cornered, the 2 of them are cornered, and he goes, and I think it's Leandrin, one of the Aes Sedai, and she's like, stop, you're cornered. He's like, no, we're not going to let you take us, you're never taking us. And she goes, how far gone are you? There's no one next to you. And then it just pans out, and this guy goes, and the other guy who's been riding a horse next to him just gone, you know? So that's amazing. The way that they play Logains is
Okay.
remarkable. Like
Nice.
it's
Okay, I'll give it a shot.
yeah. So it's really well done there. In the books, though, they do the biggest way that they show it is through like a voice, right? You know,
Okay. Yeah.
through a voice, and I'm
temptation
just thinking
and
too,
the-
like sitting here across from each other, the best way to do that, especially because we're not live and I can do post on it,
Right.
You know, is to make it a voice.
Yeah. No. 100%.
So we talked about it before, but then I think I kind of just like threw it at you one day, and you started interacting with it like perfectly.
Yeah, it was like, to me, as soon as you did it, I was like, okay, then like this has kind of always been here, or like that's what it seems like to him,
Yeah.
right? Like even if it wasn't, all of a sudden it's like, well, it had to have been. Like,
Yeah,
this
it's
you
almost
It felt
like
so normal and familiar that it
Yeah.
was there the whole
Right?
time.
So,
you,
yeah.
like it's almost like to a certain degree you've tricked yourself into believing that it's always been.
100%, yeah. And so like that's where I took it, and I was like, this other voice has been the only other thing keeping Dirk alive while he's been
Company
traveling.
and-
It's
yeah,
company.
yeah.
It's like and the only reason like he's been able to break that is because like he traveled with Tao,
Yeah.
and he's like, I don't need this voice anymore.
Yeah,
right?
even
Like,
if he hates
like,
the
Put it back in the
company,
box
it's
that
company.
it.
which is why like
Yeah.
it, anytime it talked about Leor or Paige, it was like, oh, they're trying to me over.
Yeah.
But like if they talked about Tal, it was like, no, actually, you're wrong.
Yes, you
Like,
always had such a strong
it was
reaction
like,
when
no,
it was.
like what are you talking
Yeah.
about? But like, yeah, if it was Paige, it was like, yeah, for sure she's trying to me over. And then Leor's like, yeah, maybe he is a
Yeah,
dark
you're
friend.
so smart. You're
Yeah,
so
like,
smart, voice.
Yeah. You're so good.
Yeah.
But
And did
you were really good at
Yeah.
being insidious. Like
Yeah.
and like sometimes we'd be having a conversation and you just chime in this one line. Like from the
like,
peanut gallery.
good.
You
Of
just,
course you would say that.
Yeah.
Or, see, I told you she wasn't like...
Or
It
something.
helped me so much in being like, because like after a while when you're playing with a party, like it doesn't matter if you're playing like a curmudgeon or an asshole
Yeah.
character, you have to be like, I'm part of the group now, right?
Yes,
Like-
exactly, exactly.
but you're like being able to hear that and knowing that like the audience hears this, I could be like, like I now have reason to keep doing this. Like
I'm already part of a group.
Yeah, like, right. So,
I am plural.
super awesome.
Yeah. what I'm all
But
about.
I think what I loved too was like, because at first you guys would be super surprised whenever I would just like start talking. And so like, it's funny looking back at the video and you guys are like, just look right at me. At the end, you guys just got so used to the shenanigans of it all that you just never looked at me. It's so good.
It was just all happening.
You guys were like, he's not here. We're not hearing this. And I loved seeing that. Like, it's such a small thing, but I loved it.
And to
Yeah.
like fully answer your question, because I forgot what it was, but like I praise him on his voices because I think I even told you in the car once. I'm like, I yelled at this voice because like legitimately in character, like I'm like shut up, I'm trying to talk.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
like I'm not yelling at Brad. Like as Dirk, I just get so into it. I'm like it just is so bothering that there's
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
presence here
Yeah.
that like I
that's
can't.
wrestling controlled.
I
That's
can't
right.
hold
The city
it
is
back,
trying to
right?
take the steering wheel.
Like,
and it's
I
like,
could hold
no.
it for 15
Yeah.
sessions and be like, this is just a voice. But afterwards, it's like, yo, just actually like, I'm trying to do stuff
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah.
And that's another funny thing that worked out with both of your characters where you're like, I want to be like psionic soul sorcerer. Can this be like channeling? And I was like, well, not really, but it could be one of these weird like gifts that are like connected with the power but not channeling, you know? But like just the fact that you guys both had this constant voice, except yours is how you have like attained every bit of power you have in this world, and yours is what took it away from you.
Yeah.
You know, I
Like,
just loved it.
For me,
Yeah.
that was the moment I think for Dirk, he realized that he was is when he told you that he heard voices and you're like, we
Not the
don't
same.
hear
Yeah.
the voice. And Dirk was like, no, that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's not good.
Yeah. No.
Just the growing feeling of just the sickening hopelessness as the last couple of episodes
Ugh.
kind of built up. We could tell there was, we were building up to something. There was some attack that was going to come on, and Dirk is just getting worse.
Yeah.
And worse
Yeah.
and worse. There was this,
It was after the Drakkar.
yeah, it was after
Yeah.
the Drakkar. There was this episode in Ozark. I forget all the characters' names, but it was one of the, I think it was the main character's brothers.
Ben.
That's right, Ben. And it's just how,
Spoilers for Ozark.
No, yeah, not doing that.
but when you watch it, it's just this horrifying feeling where you just feel so hopeless and upset.
And it's like it's like an hour or 45-minute long episode, and you can
You just
see,
you know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
at the
you
end.
can
it's
feel the
getting
tension
worse and
building,
worse
and,
and
you're,
worse.
Yeah.
I felt it too
Yeah.
though, like that session with
Yeah.
with like after the Drakkar fight where you had seen Logain channel and you had channeled and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and you weren't able to let it go when you got back to the camp, and like unprompted by me, I just said you can't let it go, and you started acting wild. I felt sick.
Yeah.
I felt sick, and I was like, this is first of all incredible, and that's when you were like talking to Logain and you just turn around and you're like, shut up, he's gonna tell me, you're gonna tell me, right?
Yeah.
And like
It was
you
like
had
the
this
slip.
you had this look in your eyes, and I was like, damn, he's playing this perfectly. Like after the
and
session
even
I was
you as Logain, you were like, you know,
yeah,
you're like,
no, I was like, I
oh,
wanted
man,
to make
this
it clear Logain's like,
Yeah.
and like after the session when we're doing our usual stand outside in the street, I was like, that was amazing. Don't feel like you ever need to be any crazier than that. You've done it.
good.
Everyone knows. Like,
Everyone knows.
like do what you want to do, but like don't feel like maybe I'm not going hard enough because you're great.
It was actually like
You're
such a
going
good
just
app
hard
for
enough.
you.
It was that session. It was like session 18 or something.
Something
like
like
or
that,
19. And I was like, man, I have 3 sessions left, and like I don't know what it looks like. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm crazy enough. Like, okay, I'm just gonna egg it on like
I need to
one
devolve.
last session.
No, that
and
was
then you're like,
perfect.
you're good. I'm like, okay.
That was
perfect. Put it on a little
I
bit
scared
too.
Brad.
because I was falling into the trap of being like, I know how crazy you're getting. I know that you're like rolling stuff and your hair's falling out,
Yeah,
and your
yeah.
fingernails are, and I know I'm talking to you the whole time, and it's your brother's voice, but with an echo.
Oh yeah.
But like, then it's also like I'm also realizing during that session that you're doing all that, I'm like, he needed to be more outward with it. Other than that, it was like the one thing when you guys were sneaking up to the way gate, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, dope. Such a good job by
Great.
you, man. It was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
All the people out here suffer with mental health. I forgot to think about you when I was thinking about that. So I hope it was respectful. If not, email me.
I mean,
Let
that's
me
why
know.
I think that's why it's not an issue, because it's not like this isn't a portrayal of.
It's
mental-
not. It's
As
not
you were
like
saying, Victor, it's
you
not.
know,
It's not.
it's not
tropic
based
in
on
that
that.
It's
sense.
not,
You're
it's not
trying to
based on
portray-
tropes.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
It's not
it was
based on
just. It
trope
was.
or more importantly, exaggerations.
Yeah, and it's
I
it's
didn't-
and
yeah,
we're
didn't
in a
think of it
fantasy
at all.
world. It's different rules. I mean, technically, it's kind of like a different iteration of our world, so you could argue that there's a parallel. But you know,
Anyway, super
Like,
curious about
semantics.
this.
Yeah.
Email us.
yeah.
I want to learn.
Tweet me.
I'm gonna throw out a question for everyone. including
Yeah,
you,
cool.
Brad.
That's against the rules, but I'll allow it.
Stretching the
Only I
things
can do
again.
that, actually. So
That's right. Just imagine Paige's voice in each of your minds. No, it's
I'll edit it in.
What was a moment? It's kind of like on the same lines. What was one moment or a one-liner, if you remember that really stuck with you in a heavy way? Brad, you might have these more on the tip of your tongue. I know I had one that
Yeah, lead us
for
off.
me
lead us
was
off.
hefty. It wasn't even Victor when you were speaking in character. It was like, what do you do after the denouement of the fight, and you were yelling at Leo was yelling at the dragon, and you just said in a very flat voice, "I let go of this weak man."
Yeah. That was nice.
Yeah.
I listened to that
was good,
twice and
You're
imploding.
so mad.
Yeah.
I know it was
Man.
because I made him promise.
And the worst part is, like, you can't do anything about it.
No, and I know
You can't do anything.
It was that. It's because you had let the rage out. You had yelled at him. He had received it. He heard you, and it was the accepting the moment was with that line. This weak man.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved that because it was like, first of all, it made me feel super gratified because I'm like, oh, I think Victor's actually mad IRL.
Honestly, yes.
But like, also, like you said, like you can't do anything about it because your options are, sure, you could probably ragdoll him in that point. Like he was pretty, like he wasn't helpful in that fight because like he had almost gotten severed from the source. Like he was like reeling super, like his HP was fine, but effectively he had no class abilities, right? He couldn't have done anything to fight you off. But then at that point, it's like, what does that accomplish?
That's exactly
What
it.
if he? I don't think this loser is the dragon, but what if he is? And then even if he isn't, my friend just died.
It doesn't bring back.
Doesn't bring it back.
Doesn't bring back
Dirk.
Dirk. It just makes it worse.
Yeah.
But I loved it. It was just like throwing back because I tried to play Logain as like very sympathetic. Like the show does that quite a bit too, you know. But then ultimately, he's a super flawed guy.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, like
super flawed.
Lior's
The hubris
whole
of the
problem
man.
with him, especially even going into that last episode.
Yeah.
Where Dirk, you're like, I'm going with the dragon, and Lior just keeps trying to say, Dirk, he's gonna use you. Dirk, he's gonna use you.
Yeah.
And Dirk's like, no, man, he's gonna teach me. He's gonna save me. He's gonna teach me. He's gonna save me.
Yeah,
he's like,
that's-
Lior, he
All
just
the
keeps repeating
voices,
it,
right, yeah.
and he even says it to Logain, and Logain's kind of like, hey, like,
He
I
chose
hope,
to be. Yeah.
I hope he protects me, and I'll do my best to protect him. And I'm like,
Yeah.
your words are so weak. You're
Yeah.
If
it's just
he,
like-
the only reason that he didn't use him is because you didn't live long enough to. Like he
Yeah.
wouldn't have even been like this plot to have him used, but like when he got taken, he would have been like, "Let's do all we can to get out of here," and he would have put himself in between you and the Aes Sedai. Yeah. No, I loved that for sure.
Yeah, that line was
Yeah.
empty. So anyone else with a line or a moment, if you don't, have a specific line in mind.
Oh God, I mean, the line that still like to this day just makes me like, just go like, God damn, is definitely from the nightmare fight. Where it was like all the flashbacks with everybody's like super messed up versions of everybody's like mentors or whatever. And I had Byron before I really settled on a voice for Byron. The nightmare version of Byron look at Tal and say like, you can't have your friend. You want your friend. You got to face the music. And you hit back with, I've been listening to the music. You're the one who taught me how to dance.
yeah.
I dissociated for a moment. That was so good. But like even outside of like a specific line, the hardest I've had to fight to like basically keep my composure is whenever I was like playing one of your brothers and you just made it like a super real interaction between siblings. Like it was always like so difficult. I think the hardest one was when Felix was like, I can't lose a sibling, and you were like, what happened to Sammy? And then I didn't answer, and you just went, and I almost started crying.
Yeah.
I don't even have any brothers. Just like your investment with every single one of like the family interactions was so good. I loved it.
It was really nice because I find that there's this very easy trope to fall into of, oh, my family is dead, or I've left my family, or I don't get along with my family. And this is
The most alive
I wanted
family.
to commit. I wanted to commit.
Yeah.
And so I knew going in, Tal's got 12 brothers and sisters and loves all of them to bits. And there's nothing wrong with that family dynamic.
Yeah.
It's a very close family. They all love each other. They're from a small farming town. And she just wants to go be with her brothers.
Yeah.
But it's also
And that's
you
all
have
she's ever wanted.
also you because your family's so complete is you are whole, but you have the most to lose simultaneously,
100%.
Yeah.
and it's this
Yeah.
the scary.
I know I didn't derail the whole campaign because the DM's the one who threw it in, but like in the moment I was like, I've derailed this whole campaign for us all to go find my brother.
No,
But it was perfect.
I'm glad you
honestly,
thought that.
that was one of the things I did not have that planned at the beginning, like at all. I was kind of just like, they're gonna have to go north, you know, like you want to go check things out,
Yeah.
you know,
remember-
and you want to go
Perfect that you
there,
said it.
but then I was like, why would the other two want to go there? And so I was sort of like playing it out and seeing what happened, and then I was like, after we had that Otto and Cyrus interaction with the two doofusest brothers in the world, you know, and then immediately, like, again, I didn't know that Julian and you were close until you saw Julian. And then once we had those, I was like, oh, this is devious. But like
It's-
also like a meaningful reason for you to want to
For
head up
sure.
north.
And I remember reaching out to you a couple games before it was laid out saying I like am a firm believer of like keeping parties together and stuff, but I'm trying to think of a reason for Tal to continue when Tal has reached her final destination.
Yes.
And I'm coming up blank, and you were like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And I was like,
and so
cool.
and like in full honesty, my initial plan was just to have sort of some of that stuff with Felix happen and have it be like, you know, like that's just not how this world works. You can't join the army. This is a fantasy. But then I was like, that's just mean, and it betrays the dynamic of the family. That like you wrote to me and you're like, I have 12 brothers and sisters and here are all of their names and the age order.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, there is some care going into the family here. And like to have your brother, even in a stressful wartime scenario, like he was mean to you and he was dismissive of you, but you saw that it was of a point of stress, of a point of humanity, of a point of I have lost a brother. Arguably too, because I think both of us forgot that Oliver existed the entire time. There are too many for me to give jobs to. But like
Where's Oliver? Nobody knows.
We're running out of ranks,
that's for the sequel.
Oliver is the king, because that's really all that's left.
Yeah,
Zach
he changed his name to
comes back
Johannan.
as Oliver.
but sort of like you playing the family dynamic made that a much more compelling avenue to take for everybody, because all of a sudden it became, oh, here's something that you care about, and because you have been so invested in being the one who keeps this family together, they have so much more of a reason to help you keep yours.
Yeah.
You know? So that, again, that was like me being able to roll with things more and like not be like, no, this is the specific reason that it is happening. And like you guys all like, I think explored so many things with your characters that I didn't know going into it, that it helped me make all those decisions. Yeah.
You were good at weaving it in though. Like, and like even giving all those different brothers different personalities, like that is hard, right?
It was tough. I was running out. That's why we didn't meet Oliver.
So, the fact that it was like running gag hit with the dumb stick. I fully was supposed to say hit with the ugly stick.
I know, because
But
even
I
the sentence
misspoke.
that you said didn't make any
No,
sense.
it didn't.
You were saying like
No.
everyone's brothers are attractive. You're like, yeah, of course, except not Toby. He got hit with the dumb stick.
No, I was definitely supposed to say
Double
ugly,
shade.
and like dumb came out. I was like, no, but I think it was
Exactly,
beautiful
dumb.
that like at the very, very end, it was like, he's just a klutzy dude.
Yeah, he just doesn't belong. He just doesn't belong on a farm. But
Yeah.
he's like the smartest dude in the whole family.
Yeah.
You know, and just
Bespectacled and
caring,
Reading a book.
caring immediately, like, you know, like. And that was my sort of like, I was like, okay, how can I make an interaction with Toby not be just a dumb joke at the end?
I mean,
And
also not be a Cyrus and Otto.
And also, exactly, also, like, how do you distinguish him from Cyrus and Otto? And it's like, the way that I sort of headcanoned it is like, your parents have a sheep farm and he's horribly equipped for it, but he shepherds his family. He's the oldest and he looks after the flock. And that, you know, so like,
That's exactly it.
Yeah, so-
I loved that you did that.
yeah, no,
that was-
I had some of the most fun I had was playing your brothers for sure. It was
Nice.
just like so many things to explore and like, how can I be different variations of the same guy, you know? Yeah.
I was gonna say one interaction, and it's a weird way to pinpoint something, but it's how you didn't react, how you didn't say something, was when the moment where after like 20 whatever sessions of building trust, you go, I can't believe I'm the one who broke our trust, and then you don't say anything. You're like, I look down, and then that entire episode, Paige is just like. Logan's
I
like,
pack-
you can't be here.
Yeah.
Paige is like, I go.
I go,
I go,
I pack
yeah,
my bags.
I was
Yeah,
so
I was
good.
just like, it was so
good.
devastating.
Especially because like the intro we have of your character is like you get yourself in hot water by talking back to White Cloaks, and you always have a comeback, and you are quipping with everybody all the time, and then you were like, it's like an earnest admission of fault that like. And I don't know if you can like sort of walk us through your mental state, but the way that you responded to that as just like I have nothing for this was so good.
I think that was the same morning that Paige found out the Aes Sedai had left.
Yeah.
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 And this was after she finally was with them, but didn't realize she was not with them. They were not there to work with her. They were there doing
they
their
didn't
own
take her
thing.
with you.
No, that's right. That's exactly it. I felt outside of that family, and I was like, and I only have these guys. And then when you said that, it was, I have no one, the way my voice always told me I would be. And it was, yeah.
Yeah, because you guys had that bond.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
in spite of everything,
That's right.
you know, we
It's,
share.
I will trust him no matter what the voices tell me to, like, even though self-preservation doesn't point me in this direction, I will choose it because I believe that this will be the best thing.
Yeah.
And it was, no, you were wrong.
Yeah, it's crazy. The session before is when I actually told Logain.
Yes, that's
Did
right.
you think I was going to tell him?
No, I didn't. I didn't think you were going to tell him.
Yeah.
That was...
You were saying it to him, and you just see the rest of us are just like,
I cannot move.
Honestly, that was my reaction too, because after the previous game, when you so delicately, as Paige revealed that there were a bunch of Aes Sedai and a warder in the camp, 2 warders.
That's so funny
It
to
was
me.
that,
So
it was-
funny.
and just your rage going like the whole time was so funny. But it was after that session, you guys were still upstairs, like grabbing your things and saying your goodbyes, and me and Zach were already outside. He's like, "Would it?" You asked me, which like thank you for that. You're like, "Would it really mess up the end of your campaign if I tell Logain that there are Aes Sedai in the camp? Because I can't think of a reason why I wouldn't." And I hadn't even considered that as a possibility. Like I don't even know why. I was like,
Yeah.
everyone's gonna march towards the border together, and they're all gonna know. And then the moment you said it, I'm like, that's crazy. But then I was like, no, that won't mess me up because you're right.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be wow.
Yeah.
Because then I realized, I was like, I've got to get them out of there
Yeah.
so that they can ambush everybody instead of just being in there and feeling a signal and knowing it's go time. I need to get them out of there so they can ambush everybody. And I don't think you're going to be there. They might have gone to get you, but I rolled a really good stealth check. And so when I said, like, when you guys were having that conversation, I said you did hear one voice go,
Sigh.
it was
Yeah,
Reg.
yeah.
Reg. They sent Reg.
Good old Reg.
Well, Reg, you reacted funny in your conversation
Yeah,
with Reg. He went to clap you on the shoulder and you flinched away from
yeah,
him.
Reg.
And he just looked at you. He
Best friend,
rolled
worst enemy.
rolled a good insight check. He's like, all right, get some sleep, man. And then he followed you around the rest of the night and he heard that conversation. He was like, can't trust her. We got to go.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Reg.
it was Reg. It was Reg. It
I
wasn't.
knew it off the bat. I knew it off the bat.
I
like
knew you knew
100,
because you were leading
100%.
right out of that conversation.
Yeah.
But like, there was a possibility. There was a world in which he didn't hear that, and
Yeah.
they said, "Do you want to come with us?" And then maybe it's you go. I've got to go with Tal south. I can't walk Dirk to the border because Tal's going alone with these soldiers, and who knows what they're up to. You know.
Yeah.
So I was playing all these different things in my head, but then when he was able to overhear you, I was like, okay, so you're not going to be with them. And
But
it
that
it was your like, I thought I was special. And I was like, oh, I wasn't even anticipating that angle. But
That was so
Ouch.
heartbreaking.
Ouch.
Even like I like did not role play well when we met them. I said when you went and like met them in the tent.
Yeah.
And they just like asked you all questions. You asked them like a couple questions. They gave you no answers.
Yeah.
And they're like, why did it take you so long to get here? I'm like, because you didn't equip her or anything.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
maybe if you shared spells and then
I have
one
the
of
faintest idea of what you were talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, I need to role play Lior and not role play how angry Victor is at the moment because
And I
was just
played
like,
it. It was interesting because I loved that moment where it was like, I'm not sure like if anyone can empathize of, let's say you have an older brother and older sister, and for whatever reason they meet your friends, and in those interactions the older sibling realizes that those friends are pretty to you, and you're like, no, it's fine, and you're like, no, it's not fine, can't you see this, you guys are not fine. I'm like, no, it's gonna be okay, I'm gonna figure it
That
out.
was exactly
and,
it.
and it was
It's
that
chill,
it's chill, I'm gonna make it work. And it was that feeling
wow,
that
you nailed that on the head in terms
Yeah.
of wow, oh my god.
I have never been so transported back to early high school.
I was just gonna say, how many shitty friends have you had?
I've had great friends.
Yeah, I only became friends with Victor later in high school. Before that, it was not. Who knows? It was not a bunch of Victors. but yeah, no, definitely. I loved the way that you played that.
Yeah.
heavy moments. They were good.
Any of you two guys, did you have any like big zing aha moments that you?
Really bad when people put me on the spot.
They
Trying
can be
to
funny
think
moments
about-
if you want.
Yeah, they can be funny moments too.
Linchpin moments,
I would like to shout myself out and say I was fully not role playing when I told you to. Because I was like so frustrated that you guys weren't going to the inn I wanted you to go to, and then the moment that happened, you guys were like, "Yeah, we're definitely gonna stay here." I was like, it. That also
Can
just
we have our gold back? You can see Brad just shut off, just
emotionally.
Yeah.
The great thing too is it's a gift that I keep giving myself because I've been able to clip that 1 second clip of me saying it, and anytime you guys would be like, "So we level up again, right?" I'm just an easy response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't say it's like a moment, but I think the theme of like every single fight we had up until like session 12 or something was like each individual person being like, "Protect Paige," you know, like
Yes.
always a different person. Then Tal's like, "Protect Paige," and she runs ahead every single time. So the point, like Paige ends up like at one point you like alone, and I think at one point you almost did go down.
You got rocked, yeah.
rocked, and then we all had to be
rock,
like, "Okay, stop," and then Dirk had to be like, "No one's listening. I'll protect Paige."
For me, it was the full circle of you being like, "I'm sorry, Tal. You have to stay with Paige."
That was so good. So
What was
good.
it? Like the Drakkar fight. It's like Toby's like, "What do you want me to do?" It's like, "Protect Paige."
That
the running
theme just
joke,
keeps
right?
going. I
And
think
then
it's
the
also
insanity of the final battle. Tal's got Paige. Tal runs the cart to the center of the action and bolts. It's just
Guys, I'm not even gonna lie. I didn't consider the possibility of using the cart in the fight at all. It's just because I had built it for the I
as soon
just
as I
built
saw
it in
it.
Johanna, and like I didn't even have horse minis. I ordered a thing off of Amazon a day before so I could have horses for my cart. And then you were like, "I want to ride the cart," and I was like, in my head, I'm like, you can't do that.
I know. I could tell in
But it
your
was-
reaction.
It was just so funny how
was
you
so-
left Paige.
But you want to know the worst part?
You brought it, and then you like step into the wind out.
Correct.
I was just like,
I was like,
this is.
And
she's
she
there
was
with her
so late
channeling
in the
people. It's
initiative
fine.
order.
I'm pretty sure
funny
I
to
was
me.
like next, and I used a maneuvering strike
did.
Yes.
You did.
on Paige to be like, you can get out of here. And he was like, I'm good where I am.
No, it's because with 30 feet. No, it's because
She
30.
backed me up.
No, 30 feet of motion would have got me either closer to Larry or
Yes.
right between the Aes Sedai.
Yeah,
and,
no, you
and
were
there was
dead- you
nowhere.
were
So I
smack
was
dead
like,
in the middle.
can I jump down and hide? But I need an action. That's silly. I was like, I have only 2 useful skills, and one of them's persuasion.
It was
We're
just
gonna
so
try
funny
one.
that like you spent so much of every single combat like being like with good reason as
Yeah.
much on the periphery as you could
yeah.
be, and that whole combat you were the person who was in the middle of the field the
the dead
most.
center.
It
Yeah.
was so funny, and the fact that
You were
you
fine.
you stayed standing as long as you did is
yeah.
a
That's the
miracle.
insanity.
But
I was
then
rolling
you-
really well though.
You got off like wall of fire. You had like
Yeah.
great moments in there.
I
but it was
placed
just,
her perfectly.
Okay, Michelle. I got a lot of range spells to
You do that to
avoid
me.
every-
The next arc, and we're gonna.
Everyone should stop bullying me. I helped.
I think that was the most stressful moment of that campaign for me, was the sense that like it was right after you went down where I was like, okay,
I
like
can imagine.
this has to be the moment where I supernova.
Yeah.
If I do it now, does Paige die? Did I just
Yeah.
kill
Yes.
Paige's character?
Yeah.
And then I was
you
like,
weren't that far.
no,
No,
it was
no,
literally
I was
like
on the
I
way.
could lay of
I was on
hands.
the way.
I was,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
lay
yes,
of hands
oh,
was an
that.
action, and me and Brad had discussed
Yes.
like if you want to do anything, it's an action. So I was like, okay, can I heal it? No, I don't have healing
Yeah,
word.
because that was one of the things he was trying to discuss. He's like, if I can explode as a bonus action, because then I can command Tal to stay and then run and bonus action.
Yeah, it would've been real bad.
and so he was playing that out. I'm like, dude, blowing yourself up and like
full
trying to
action.
cause a huge amount of damage, which I was as the voice trying to tell you not to do it because I didn't think you had enough to get rid of this
Oh,
monster.
interesting.
I was like, careful, you have to make sure you have to make sure you be careful.
Yeah,
and
it
then you
was-
did it and I was like, if he might not kill him.
Yeah, no.
It was close. It was really close.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but
That must have been a
but you
tough
going
moment,
down,
though,
I
yeah.
was like, I don't know if I just killed Marty's character, and I was like, you know what?
And you told Paige. Paige was like, "Are you gonna get?"
Tal.
You told Tal. You're like, "Are you gonna get Paige?" And you're like, "Yep, I got Paige."
Yeah.
And then you just.
And Tao was like,
But then
great, gone.
You were like, I got all of us. And I know afterward you told me like I was thinking like Reg would like get the hell out of there.
I was,
But
yeah.
Reg is like, yeah, stand against the shadow. Hell yeah, dude.
And now, it, like, to me, acknowledging that, like, of course that was Reg, because I had my suspicions, or like, it makes it even better because, like, he knows I'm freaking out. He can see me fight with, like, it should be like, okay, even if this guy's channeling, like, look what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, of course,
Yeah.
I'll
And I
let
mean,
this
like,
happen.
He strangely saw both sides.
Yeah.
of it
And
in a
again,
way.
like book 1 spoilers, obviously, but that's what I said I'd limit myself to. But at the end of book 1, after Rand finds out that he's channeling, and he's like, oh my god, like.
what does that mean?
I'm dying. Like Moraine basically tells him, and he's like, oh my god, like this is terrible. And he walks back to meet all of his friends, and like the boys don't know, but the girls, Egwene and Nynaeve, do. And they look at him, and like Egwene shies away. Nynaeve just looks at him sadly, and Lan just looks at him and goes, looks like you finally learned how to use that sword, sheepherder. Not bad. And he goes, I know. And like it's Rand's monologue going, I know that he knows.
Yep.
And the fact that he is acting completely normal is the nicest thing anyone
Anyone's
could
ever-
ever do for me.
100%.
And so I was like,
100%.
these warders kind of like, they don't have the strict laws about taking out male channelers. They're just out here to fight the shadow.
Yeah.
And if someone's fighting the shadow with everything they've got, they're gonna respect it.
Yeah, and like that was super awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought I killed
Yes.
your character.
Yes.
there.
But the motif of like protect Paige was so funny.
It's so good.
So funny.
The recurring.
So good.
Stay with Paige. Yeah. What about you, Michelle?
I feel like you guys touched on everything I was kind of brainstorming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of went off there.
Yeah,
right?
I think my favorite thing was interacting with all my brothers.
It was a lot of
And
fun.
just in like the vastly different ways in which I got to interact with them was just really
Yeah.
just a super duper amount of fun.
I did love throwing all you guys for like flashbacks because like I always knew that you guys would be able to like sort of invest in the characters state
Without
of
our
mind.
consent, all right? We didn't know it was going to happen.
No, I know, especially the time that you tried to avoid one, which was so funny. I was like, it reminds you of another time years ago. How do you think Dirk's feeling right now? And you're like, well, you said right now, so I'm going to say right now. I'm like, okay, so we flash back to 5. But like being able to like do all those things and like go far back, and even though you know the result of these things, or like, you know, you've, especially for yours, because it was so
You
bad.
getting stabbed by your brother, and you like the conversation where you're like, "Do you have something to tell me, Dirk?" And Dirk's like, "Nope."
It is so
kind of what are you doing there?
Because like I totally know where it's going, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know how. And I was like,
You broached it.
Yeah, it was so funny.
so
And,
hard.
like there were a couple of the moment when the dragon was like, I don't know all of your names. I'm so sorry. After I full forgot to ask everyone's name, which that's my funniest like mistake for sure. Is like
to my camp.
like I was just so focused on like here are all the NPCs and here's that. He didn't ask for anyone's name, but like going around like Leo, son. I believe I already know your name. Builder, yes. Tal. Nice to meet you, Tal Millen. Kashmiri, pleasure to meet you. And then it looks over you and goes, Dirk. I'm like, one more time for me? Like, that was just so funny to me because it was like a choice.
Yeah. I
But
was
it
like,
was
how
so good.
sheepish can Dirk be? You
It
know?
was the answer incredibly.
incredible.
Sort of, I guess, another overarching question. Did any of you guys have like a character moment or something that developed in your character that like was a surprise? Something that you weren't seeing like that would happen necessarily at the outset. Like I know like when I build a character, I have a pretty strong idea of who they're going to be and what they're going to do, but like I never necessarily, that doesn't necessarily mean they get there. Something else might happen, you know?
I have a bit of a twist on that.
Yeah.
I feel like I had a part of my character that I just fully forgot to inform you of.
I think so. If you're thinking about what I'm thinking about, definitely.
Which was the whole like, so Byron wanted to train her to
Yeah.
kind of be like, oh, this army that I've grown up absolutely loving and adoring and dedicating my life to, but then just like kind of kicked me out as washed up.
Yeah.
To kind of stick it to them. I'm gonna train up this girl real good, but I'm also gonna train her to lead.
Yes, the train
And
her
I
to lead.
Forgot to inform you of that bit.
Yes, and so with like 5 sessions left, you're like, because he was training her to lead, I'm like, oh, that's so cool that you're adding that as a development. And you're kind of like, what?
No, I've been there the whole time.
Yeah, and it's like almost in the immediate when you said that, I was like, oh, I kind of wish I had known that. I may have thrown more stuff there, but I was like,
But, like, it
no, but
actually
you worked,
tracked
but you
really
worked your way
well.
into doing that yourself because you already knew
Yeah.
it. So it didn't matter that I didn't know. You were already trying to
Imagine-
get everyone
like,
to lead.
And honestly, it was so awesome to see like the end progression to where like your family was separated, was going down, and you're like, I need to tell
Guards.
people what to do. Like, you're
Guards,
doing this.
take him.
this,
Yeah.
this,
Yes.
We need this. Get all this stuff up, and it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, people
Yeah.
are listening. Like, you've earned that respect. Like, and we've seen you in combat, so we know that if anybody comes to step up, you're like, shut up. You do this now. You know, like.
I cut his throat.
yeah.
Pardon just.
Yeah, the three of you.
Like drops detect thoughts.
Honestly, thank you so much for that because like he would have been like,
thoughts. I would have
I
scrambled.
have a series of questions that I would like to ask you over the period of 25 curt minutes. I'm like, we gotta go to bed, dude.
I didn't get the answer I want. I do magical guidance to re-roll that number.
But no,
And get
like
the same roll.
it was like an
This is what would
unexpected. It was an
happen.
unexpected result for me, but then like put in context once, like you said, like that's sort of like what I've been thinking this whole time. I was telling you like my other thing was gonna be saying that like you know Felix, like if he was upset with you and you were like, Byron's been teaching me, I was gonna say like Byron he wasn't a captain. He was a scrub. Like he was just in the army. Like you know, he's this guy that you've built up on a pedestal. You don't know anything about the army. He's an old man who didn't do anything.
Did he have a Heronmark blade though? I think he had mentioned that. Am I crazy? Did
What's
I?
that?
I don't know.
I wasn't
Not
sure if you said there was like a Heronmarked blade. I'm not sure if it was like a recall or something.
I don't remember, but like you can have a Heron marked blade and not lead it.
With not being
yeah. But like,
Okay.
I might have at some point,
I don't
but like that
don't
was
know
my
what this
original.
means.
That was
like
my
a
original.
master swordsman.
Yeah,
Okay,
master
that's
swordsmen
cool.
have
Alright,
heron
good,
marked
yeah,
blades
so-
because herons
Should
are
have
the
finished the
best
book, Zach.
stabbing.
I didn't finish the book yet.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Zach.
Yes.
This is like in the first 100 pages.
No, but I know about the sword. I just don't know what having the sword means.
Master swordsman.
Okay.
Master
okay.
swordsman.
I thought
yeah.
it was that you were gonna say it leads something.
No. It means you're a master swordsman.
They explain it in
Alright.
chapter
So
5.
funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny to me that you roleplayed as well as you did without having read the entire goddamn
which is
first
so,
one.
which is so funny to me because they're
Upsetting.
like, I'm gonna play a guy who's channeling, and you never got to the part where the guy channeled. And I was
Yeah,
like,
I never, like you're telling me Ranch Channel's like, oh yeah, he's like getting to that now. Like,
like, oh my god, but it worked. So like, I guess I can't question your methods.
I'm a method actor.
Yeah, but no. So like, that's one of the things that like knowing now what I know about what you wanted your characters like teaching to be. I'm so glad I didn't say that because it would have kind of like sucked and made you like demoralized about it. You know,
Yeah.
like so. But like, by the time that I figured it out, you had already had enough of a rationale of like figuring out what to do that it was convincing for you to be like, you watch this. I need you guys to set up a perimeter. Like it was sick. That was one of the
really good.
boss's biggest boss moments, I would say.
It was nice because I was able to take like this really amazing fantasy author. Shout out to Tamara Pierce.
Shout out.
I took like a couple of like she very purposefully writes these books with lead heroines.
Yes.
And so like I took a couple of those and I mashed them together and I was like, okay, now what if you added like a little dash of positivity and a big dash of hyperactivity? And it's
12
kind of
siblings.
how I create. And one of those characters that I was pulling off of was actively being trained to lead as the only female in like knighthood.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool to be able to like pull from that. And so in my head, because I have such a vivid picture of these characters that I pulled from because I've been reading these books since I was 10
Yeah.
on repeat my whole life. And I've honestly read each book like over
A
50
million
times.
times,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what you're saying is you're gonna run the next arc in Tortal?
I was about to say.
100%. 100%.
We heard
Yes,
it here
I am
first,
here for
folks.
this.
Michelle, the most excited to
why-
DM on camera.
Promises have been made.
Mine's on hold. You're up next.
Oh no.
Yeah, no, I loved that.
Yeah,
that
so it was
like
fun.
turn for the character though, for sure. Yeah.
I think it was fun was writing a backstory that had a couple secrets in it, and
A couple?
just
one
like
or
a,
two?
Rat
just
bastard.
a few, and having like just a couple moments where that secretive backstory could kind of like find its way out. So one episode was we were on the boat, and Paige says, "Oh yeah, I've been on boats my whole life." She's never actually driven a boat, never actually operated a boat. Her family, her father was a fisherman, and he would set out every morning and go catch the fish and come back. And her job was taking the fish and selling them in the markets. And so what she would do is she would go out with her father, and then she would go do the lines, and she would set up the sails, and she would kind of prep the boat before it left, and then say, "Have a good day, Daddy," and then come back to the city and wait for him. And that was kind of like a glimpse into a secret world for her, even though it wasn't something that she could act up much. It was just a fun little pocket.
It was almost a secret for me. You're describing this environment with your dad, and I'm like, what?
But like I wrote way too much, and then I cut back. I'm like, Brad needs kind of like the beef of it, but I had all these weird little.
God, I
Yeah.
would have
yeah.
loved
Those scenes were
little
so
ganache.
cool when we got to see like young Kashmiri.
Yeah.
Because like we
In this,
see
like,
this,
bustling
we
city,
see this
like-
secretive kind of jaded
Composed,
Paige.
yeah.
And then we see this like very cute little girl who like looks up through her bangs. That like
Yeah.
like
She's still shifty. Like there's the hints of like who she is
there's
here,
the
but
hints
she's
of
like
who she's
yeah.
gonna be. Yeah, like it's
Yeah.
And I'm glad I threw that in when I did, because it was like, and again, like your whole character is built on maintaining a secret identity. So it would be a little bit silly for you to all of a sudden be like, cards on the table, here's everything,
That's
you know?
it. That's it.
But at the same time, it was
Giving
like,
the opportunities to
it was
feed
like,
into
I
the-
need you to have a, if not in like in person in front of all the other characters, but I need us to have like, let's say an on-screen moment to be like, there's a person here.
Yeah.
Where did this
Yeah,
person
yeah.
come from?
yeah.
So
No, and I thought
and
those
that
moments
and
were-
that was an important moment, because that was when you actually started telling people stuff. You know?
That's right,
And
yeah.
it was like, you know, because I'm also thinking about it gamified. I'm like, okay, if we're on session like 12 out of, let's call it 20 at the time was the goal, then it's like she's got to start talking. But at the same time, it's like she's known these people for a week.
Yeah.
It's totally logical that she wouldn't have told them this by now, except that we've been playing for 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
So
also cool
that's
that like
hard, yeah.
it was cool because that was the session after 2 sessions after Lior was like, I think it was the Illuminator. Illuminator, thank you. The Illuminator. That's right. It was after the Illuminator.
Yeah.
You spotted. Oh, you have the same accent as him. You, I guess you're both from Tanchico. And Peter's like, yes.
Yeah, it was funny because you looked at me in like a bit of a teacher. He's not supposed to know that, and I was like, but he had sent me like he's like I think I've, but he's like I think I've probably like you gave me a look like as Martin like, but I was like no, you would have known this because you did work.
I went to Tanchico.
It makes perfect
You
sense.
did work
Yeah.
at the steading outside of Tanchico. You know this accent. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And so having that be like a oh
Yeah, that was like not a forced reveal, but it was like an insight into something she couldn't have hidden, you know?
Yeah,
And I think
Yeah.
it's so funny too because it's like you're like someone knows where I'm from, and he's like, yeah, I only didn't bring it up because I didn't think it mattered. Like it's not even important information.
Yeah.
And so
But
if
it is
you're,
important. Oh, it's all in my head.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like honestly, like all the, like the storm of voices that are around you, I was very purposeful about having them be a lot of the time just mostly your own thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like because that is the loudest thing around you at most times.
That's right.
Like even
Yeah.
if there's a million people, the thing that's loudest is you being like, no one can know that I could do this. You know? Like,
Exactly.
No one can know that I'm talking to myself with this voice in my head that I hear.
oh, that was you were cooking there. That was a good.
There's all the voices. Don't channel. Speak louder into the mic. Make sure you're not saying properly. It's just a lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Kudos to you because like
Yeah.
I think you had the most restrictive rules.
Yeah, you had a hard character to
Yeah,
play.
you had the most like restrictive because you at least were like a fighter,
Yeah,
so you
yeah,
could
I could
you could
get
function.
it.
You couldn't function without it, and so that's why like everyone was saying like getting to see you at the last fight
Oh,
finally
dude.
go mask off.
Yeah.
It was so awesome watching that.
So
wall
good.
fight.
No, you know, like still subtle so that, you know, you can avoid counterspelling, which in hindsight is a wrinkle I probably would have, probably ixnayed because they could see the weaves anyway. But like,
Yeah.
it never wound up being an issue. But like, casting visible spells, I'm not just like casting dissonant whispers every once in a while, you know, like I would.
Taking the weave and
It's like
Wall of
you know,
fire,
it's-
baby.
Wall
Yeah.
of fire.
It was like the first time. I think I even whispered this to you. I might have, but I was literally like, I'm not sure Dirk can beat Paige. Like, he threw a wall of fire, and I was like, well,
Yeah.
what would happen?
It's that moment where the Marshal caster disparity crosses and we're like,
Level
oh.
8 right now.
Oh, level 4 spells. I can attack twice.
Yeah, it was so.
I realized that haste could be a good defense against you if I cast it on you
And drop
and
it.
then took it. Yeah. I was like, I have the time I need.
I know. For 6 months, I've had these two guys coming up to me and it's like, I think I know how I can kill Dirk. I think I know how I can kill Paige. And I'm just going like, please don't.
Like, and I'm
It's gonna
telling
make
you,
my
like,
life so hard if you
And
do.
then there's Tal being like, okay, guys, let's tell all our secrets.
yeah.
And then,
I'm a girl.
and then that
those
was
were the best.
that was my bad
were-
because I didn't work out with you how we were going to play. I think that's the biggest adjustment to playing like sort of on camera was figuring out how detect thoughts was going to work.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
loved that you were just texting me like I have subtle cast detect thoughts, you know, and that's little
Yeah.
things that are going to pop up on the screen.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
for like when I edit these together, it's going
Yeah.
to be like a little ticker with just script. But at the same time, then I was like, oh, you have to like probably not tell other people's secrets, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you
yeah.
were unfortunately the casualty of that, and I feel kind of bad
Session
about that
2.
one. Session 2. You were such a good sport about it though, because then it
Yeah.
became kind of like a pretty good joke to like the point of it was. I imagine it was probably frustrating, but then by the time
I was like, oh, that was short lived.
I felt like by the time we had our Shania Twain moment, that was a good payoff.
Yeah. There's that moment, and like I thought there was a cool moment where like it came into being, which is like when we killed Brodeen, everyone's covered in blood. We get back to Uncle Halden's forge, and then you're like, I just strip, and then
I'm sorry, and then both
Dirk
of
and Uncle Halden are just like, oh, it's a girl.
And
it's a girl.
credit to you
I
because you were
forgot.
right away. You went like towel, and so I was able to follow that. But like,
That
yeah,
was-
like we both
But
grew
you
up in a
all-
conservative Christian household.
You all saw like the bandages
Yeah.
that she has like binding her
Yeah.
chest flat.
But
Yeah.
it was like it's a thing that we all knew was happening, kind of, because we've joked about it and it was revealed early, and then for you to like one time just bring it up like happening physically, like.
But it was so interesting because like I always assumed in this setting, right? Not in reality, everybody, but in this setting,
Wow.
that like the
What
reason
are you even gonna say?
the reason you wanted to portray yourself as a male is because I need to go into the army because there's such respect given to these. They're acknowledged, right?
Yeah.
So I even felt that like halfway through, not Michelle, but even Tao was like, yeah, everybody knows I'm a girl, but like if I need to be in the army, I'm your brother. I am this boy, right?
Yes.
Like
It's a
even
functional
if you
identity.
know, it is a
I was
a
gonna
thing,
say
right?
it was like Tal never questioned whether or not she was born in the wrong body. She
Yeah.
always knew that she was female. What Tal questioned was the rule setting that females couldn't join
Exactly.
the army.
Yes.
And that was the whole impetus
100%.
behind.
Right, which is why at the end I wasn't like, "Hey, you're my best sister." You weren't my sister, right? While you were with me, you were my brother.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I
Yeah.
loved that you didn't have like, because like I was kind of like, this is like, what if Mulan could have been on Concerta, you know? but like I loved that you didn't have the moment at the end of all of these like, you know, the I'm no man
Yeah,
from, you know, or
yeah.
like the
I never felt
hair
the need,
toss
yeah.
because at the end like you functionally had the respect you needed, maybe not for like institutionally, but from the respect of your family being
Yeah.
like, you can lead a strike
did it.
force on your
Yeah.
own and I will fight whoever I need to fight to make sure that you can do that because you're clearly the best at it. But you had that force and you didn't like, I felt like it would have cheapened it if you were like, tell them
absolutely.
that it's me, your sister, Tala. You're like,
Right.
no, I am who I am and I don't need to ever apologize for
Yeah.
that. It's you guys that have been making excuses for it.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like it was like if you honestly look back in like human history at the pharaohs, every
Yeah.
once in a while a pharaoh crops up who is, for all artistic purposes, framed as a man, but in written record, clearly a woman.
Yes.
But they always refer to them as he because you could not be
pharaoh. Yeah.
a female
100%.
pharaoh.
Yeah,
You
kind of
couldn't
like a
be.
reverse, like Shakespearean female character.
Exactly.
It's like,
Yeah.
we all
Yeah,
know
yeah.
that's Todd.
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
like I imagine at one point or another, those who need to know in the army would be like, we're all vaguely aware.
Yeah. We don't
gonna
talk
ignore
about
it.
Yeah,
Because
we
Tal
don't talk
Tal
about it.
needs a good
Puts
strike
out the
team.
fire with
Exactly.
Exactly, right? So yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I saw that going down.
Yeah.
Especially with just so many freaking brothers who are
Yes.
well placed and scattered and enough throughout the army to be
But
like, what'd you say
conveniently-
about my brother?
But conveniently always there in a big country.
It's a small country.
Yeah. Plot.
Felix tried to keep them close.
Plot unfeasibility. You'll have
Yeah.
to see it. Yeah.
I was gonna say I just enjoyed playing Lior because I originally
Yeah.
like the whole concept of the character was just to play this very gentle being now thrust into conflict, and we're only given seeds and ways of like of Ogier kind of having battle prowess. It's
Yeah.
mentioned that there's a kind of like a strike force of sorts. Yeah, I'm trying to find a more
Not even
gentle
like,
term to
in
that.
the past, like not even presently on the continent.
Yeah,
You know, like
but in the past, a strike force
Yeah.
that helped lose Theron. There's like mention of the gardeners in like
Across the sea.
Across the
Yeah.
sea. So there's mention of Ogier being able to fight and be fearsome, and then it's not really seen. We see occasionally Loyal. Is that how I say his name out loud?
Loyal?
Loyal?
I don't know how to pronounce.
I don't know. I thought it was Egwene forever. Apparently it's Egwene.
So
I had
we
two
get to see
audiobooks
him.
and they modulated between the two, so I always.
No, you have to read the book.
I don't know who Leola is.
Loyal.
Loyola? That's
Everyone
cool.
dies.
St. Ignatius was
you
the very
never
first
meet
one
Doyle?
here.
No,
You didn't get to Camelin in the book?
I don't know which. That's the big city, right?
Yeah.
Page 51.
I'm on the part.
Get out of here.
No.
Traveling
Tell me what part you're on.
Rand and Matt are traveling. They still have the dagger.
Oh,
They've
they
been
haven't-
assaulted by like dark
You have
friends.
okay, so you haven't.
You're
I haven't
right
been to
before.
camp.
You're
I'm
right before.
You're
camp.
right before meeting
That was a
them.
really
You're
tough-
literally like
That's
part of
yo,
the book.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. Like the
Yeah.
amount of times
So that's
they're running into me.
wild because
Yeah.
you haven't even seen an Ogier yet, and you're like, this guy's nuts.
No wonder you
his whole
called
deal?
him a troll so quickly. It makes
Yeah,
sense.
we have
That
no
was
idea.
Zach in real life. Like, you didn't tell me we could play Dark Friends.
Friends? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So just like being able to take this gentle beast and then play like a fearsome side to
Yeah.
it, and like also I just like the reluctant barbarian. You've seen me play you know barbarians and fighters that are like all about battle and whatnot, but it was cool to play someone who's reluctant about it, and then like Brodeen happens and just like the grief of like having taken a life and stuff like that. So I thought that was cool concepts. But I guess the thing that I didn't like, I told you like, oh, it'd be cool if like Lior had like a fiance, and like
Yeah.
I mentioned that in the backstory, and then I like never thought that I would have to like kind of pursue that.
Yeah.
But you did such a good job that I'm like, it'd be stupid not to like to
I really loved that too, because there were like, I think because you had like built this character who is like oddly physically the biggest anomaly, but I think in terms of like mentality and sort of like where your whole headspace was at, you were the most like, I'm okay,
Yeah.
So like there were sessions when like I would leave outside, I'm like, oh shoot, I feel like I didn't give any time to Victor, but like you were mediating a lot, and so I was like, okay, like he said it would be cool if I had a fiance, let's do that, and so like
That's true.
in terms of like talking about improv, the motif of sunflower fully just off the dome when
Yeah.
we were doing that nightmare thing, and like she looked at you across the field, I was like, she needs a nickname for him, and I was like, Sunflower, we're gonna go with that because he's a sunshiny guy and he has the tree song,
and then you worked it into the letter, and
then it became this motif that really carried, and it was
Yeah.
like the closing shot on you guys was a sunflower, so like
You also had
being
that
able
one
to
at the
explore
end.
that was great.
It was
yeah,
at the inn.
the frame that had fallen
After you had gone crazy, and
yeah.
you look up, and the frame of the sunflower is broken, and it would
Yeah,
just
it was where you had like
Yeah.
lodged your hammer into the
Yeah,
wall,
yeah.
and then you heard a crash, and a painting of two sunflowers had fallen to the
Yeah.
ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, no, that was
No, that was a lot of fun, and I think like again, it really tied everything off with a bow of like the person who was most. You were the one who was invested in it for like not a personal reason. Like you were there on a job for your career goals. You were there to prove yourself and to find your brother. You were there to try and save your own life, and you were there because you thought that things had gotten a little bit too chaotic, and you wanted to see if maybe you could help.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
most
like
selfless reason to be there.
having you finally have this moment of like personal payoff and personal gratification, and it's like, I'm here to help people, and at the end all of the people came back, and like that's why like Tad was a meme character, but like you like went to bat for this little kid, and you started my son Thaddeus, and so like everyone that you had worked for was there at the end for you, and I thought that was like a nice way to sort of like tie it off with a bow for sure.
Yeah.
That kind of works into a question I had.
Yeah,
and I think
yeah,
I
go
might
ahead.
have been next in the initiative for that. I don't know if you got your turn.
I got my turn. Yeah,
Cool. At what point or what, like, was there a specific event, do you think, that caused Lior to really embrace the rage in himself? Because you seemed really comfortable with it at the end.
Yes. Yeah. It was an interesting thing where I'm like, oh, he's gonna be reluctant, but he's gonna like, it'll constantly be like a give or take type thing, and then what was there? There was specific fights. I'm trying to think exactly.
Killing Brodeen was pretty rough.
Killing Brodeen was like, oh, I'm fighting this guy, and I had first entangled him, and then I'm running to try and subdue him.
You were trying to entangle him.
And I was going to subdue him, and then I turn around, and Dirk and I had just had a conversation where we're like, hey, we're gonna have each other's back. If I go nuts, you keep me in check, and if I go nuts, I'll keep you in check. Great. We go into this fight. I entangle the guy. I go try and subdue him. I turn around and he blasts.
Yeah.
Dirk.
Yeah.
Just exploded, man.
yeah,
bazooka.
yeah,
And then
he
it's
was-
like,
Holy-
that's my guy.
and then after that, you're like, that's my guy. What's he gonna do? And he takes out a lightsaber. yeah.
Yeah, and then you cut off the guy's legs. Anyways, it got crazy in its own way.
Real quick.
But like, it was that moment of like me holding back my rage and me fighting my rage is is like putting my friends at risk. Me fighting who I am is gonna lead to one of them dying. And so it was embracing that nature.
I must do bad to do good. Kind of
Yeah.
thing. It was.
Or like what I am is not bad, but if I view it as bad in and of itself, then I will there will be a cost to that, basically.
Yeah.
So it was one of those, and so yeah, that was like kind of like the progression where it's like working against it, kind of letting it overpower him, like in the what's it called? Sometimes like in the Trolloc fight.
Yeah.
Where he lets the
letting
rage
it
kinda
consume him. Yeah.
And in the last fight, just being like, no, even though I'm in a rage and I want to fight the shadow, I need to do my promise. I need to like stick to my plan. So he doesn't let the rage overpower him.
But
he
I-
goes for.
That's cool.
I loved the character choice in the Trolloc fight to let the rage get you.
Yeah.
Because you were the one best equipped to close off the gate. But then you were like, two like me, where did you see them? And he was like, tasty in the cook pot. Oh, and you were like, and I could see the moment where you're like, I'm not going to be helpful.
And it was like, there's ways for me to metagame myself to be helpful, but
But like in one sense, you guys could have closed the gates faster. But then, you know, if you guys had gone and looked for the key and closed the gate, first of all, we wouldn't have had that really cool moment where you went into the way gate, which was like such a cool choice. But second of all, a bunch more Trollocs would have poured out of the gate because you're not fighting them and you're looking for a key. And then all of a sudden you're going and having to fight through 4 Trollocs because we don't have the 56 damage you were doing around on them. You know, like every single one of them, they had a ton of HP for like the level they were, but the two of you guys were just mowing through them. You're stunning them. It was wild for me. Like I was like, this is a stalemate. This like, and you were telling me like, I went in because I was seeing like we had reached a stalemate. We have reached checkmate, and I was like, it's true. I can keep spitting them out, but they're just gonna
keep mowing.
They're just gonna keep mowing them down, and then it's just do you find the key in time?
But then it led to like, first of all, the closest I've ever come to having a PC death.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Like,
you thought you were dead.
Everyone pulling out crazy shenanigans
Oh
to
my
try and
God.
save me. And
Two
then-
people hopping in a way gate to like.
And then you
And,
thought
like,
you were
getting-
taking opportunity attacks because you thought you were using an
I was like-
action to carry.
Yeah,
it
I was like
crazy.
Even if I go down, I'll like try and toss Paige as I do. Like hours, like there was. I wasn't sure I was gonna make it out, and then we get that Murdrell who gets his fingers snipped off, and he comes back at the end,
Yeah.
and it was just like, oh, it was so cool how
man.
it all came around.
That's I guess that sort of ties into like another question I had. Is there any like loose threads that didn't get tied up, like unanswered, not even like big plot threads, but like unanswered questions that you guys had? For me, one of the loose threads, and it was just like sort of like by the pacing of the finale that we didn't get to it, I think, is something got out of that waygate.
Yeah.
After you guys closed it up.
Yeah. I didn't do my job super great.
You know, it's sort of like left as an assumption.
I
that
assumed
maybe...
they went out of a different way gate. Yeah, I just because there was
not-
another
there's
one.
not-
The way that I have it in my head is that waygate was damaged. I described it as partially crumbling after the fireball.
Yeah.
Eventually, something forced its way out of there, and
Oh,
the
man.
Trollocs that were already out, because there were already Trollocs
Yeah.
out of there. If you guys had hung around there and like long rested, Trollocs probably would have come down from out of the mountain. You know,
In that area.
yeah,
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay.
the
yeah,
area,
because
right.
there were two just chilling outside. They were just the sentries, you know? So for me, that was one. But like for you guys, was there anything that like sort of like never got resolved? Otherwise, I'm just going to start like flashing little, you know, lore nuggets at you.
Oliver.
Oliver?
Where's Oliver?
My initial plan for Oliver was to be more in the role of Sammy and just say like he was out there leading an elite strike force, you know? And then the Sammy thing became so integral that and it wasn't being brought up as like here's a gap, and like it became funny when you realized it, but I was like, no one at home has a list of the names of siblings, you know? So no one's going to be keeping track of this. But like I was like, it would almost cheapen Sammy's thing to be like traveling up north and be like, be careful out there, little sister. There's bad people in these parts, you know? So Oliver is still out there somewhere. He's probably made it back to the capital now that a lot of the troops have been recalled, and is probably just on rotation. I think Felix has pulled in all of the brothers for a period of time, and they're all rotating and taking breaks and going home. Felix's being first. So they're all stationed in Johanna now.
Cool.
For the time being. And reluctantly, when Felix is gone, Julian is handling his paperwork.
Tal laughs at him constantly.
100%. 100%. He's sending you terrible letters, like, with the wrong royal seal.
No, I think he did a really good job tying up, at least from Paige's perspective, a lot of the loose ends. It was really, really well done.
Very happy my brother's dead.
Yes. Yeah. If I would have been really sad if he had escaped. That would have sucked.
Like, I would have understood it, but it would have sucked a little bit.
No. And, like, he, like, and again, I know we talked about this off camera, but it was like he showed up and you guys were like, some of you guys were like, I thought he was going to come with, like, more white cloaks and the strike force was going to be white cloaks. I was like, no,
he's off the wall, man.
He's
totally,
vendetta.
Yeah.
He totally has a vendetta now. And I mean, that was, like, that moment when, like...
Really? I pissed him off?
A little bit.
Yeah,
a little
just a
bit.
little bit.
But it was honestly less you. That was like dessert. His reservation for his big dinner that he's had
Like-
for 2 years is, this is the one who, like, and turning you in as essentially a dark friend is what basically shot him up the list to become a questioner. You always overstepped what he was able to do because you were so good at being a child of the light, and
Because I'm a gangster.
him turning you in finally let him in to be one of the guys in the hands of the light. But it, even though he made it and he was in, it still drove him nuts that he didn't get you.
Yeah.
He tried to get you and you bested him again.
I always
So
had-
even him getting you, you beat him.
Yeah.
So he just went full feral and he's like, I'm finishing this.
And I always found that, like, I didn't think I was going to do it until I actually did it, but me channeling actually against him, because like, I'd never had the chance to ever before.
No.
Like, I think would have been the thing that, like, broke him, and he's like, nah, this.
100%.
Like-
Yeah, and like earlier iterations and like plans, I was trying to figure out if, like, before I realized that Garen's wall was out there, I was trying to think if it would, like, happen across a river or something. And you were, like, holding him off at the other side of a river being like, let us go. And he's like, I can't let you go. So, like, different iterations were very much playing more into him being, like, so laser focused on you. But in the end, there were so many threads that I was like, we already know what his vendetta sort of is. We can sort of let that sit in the background.
100%.
Yeah.
And it was just so good that we had discussed it so many times before. Like, I'd been like, I don't think I can do it.
Yeah.
Like, I looked at Leo and I was like, even if I did do it, like, thematically, I don't know if Dirk can actually channel again. I think I even brought it to, I was like, what if I start channeling and, like, he starts channeling? I think Dirk's done. If I ever go one-on-one with this dude and he just busts out like a channel, I think Dirk is like, yeah, I'm done. You
You just go, peace, and turn into vapor.
I'm done.
He just blew himself up, but no one was around. He just
You just full
Shut off the
master
video game.
Oogway yourself under a persimmon
That was
tree.
a hard reset.
Yeah.
Do you want to be woven back in? Nope.
No. Is Larry still there?
Absolutely not.
One thing that I had that you brought up, like, in the last session, and I was kind of like, I'm gonna have to ignore that because it would be a bummer. Because I did sort of establish it, was you were asking about your Aunt Charlotte.
Oh,
And in an earlier session, you were like, I had an aunt who went to the tower, Charlotte. And I said, and you didn't roll too great on your,
No, it
like,
was a
history
low
check.
roll.
But I was like, sounds like someone who, like, worked in the kitchens at some point, you know? I accepted and novices work in the kitchens too. But also some people just aren't strong enough in the power, even though they're found and recruited. They're not strong enough in the power to be raised Aes Sedai. Now, some people go back to their lives and have, like, their 20 pieces of silver that they get to, like, make their way back home. And some people are just embarrassed and don't want to go home. And so that was a thread that I was like, that is too much of a bummer for this finale.
Huge bummer.
Too much of a bummer for this finale.
But, you know, if Paige went to go find her and said, hey, your niece says hi, maybe she wouldn't be so embarrassed anymore. She'd come home.
Yep, it would have been. It was too much of a big swing for that, like, last montage section. But like 100%, you know, it could have been very much that, you know, and be like, you know, she says she can channel, you know. she's got this orb, you know. But yeah, that was one of the threads that I was like, I can't believe you checked back in on that in the last session.
That's a
But
really cool
I was like,
idea.
it's too much of a mood killer, so I'm not gonna bring it up again. But like, yeah. she was very much there. Yeah.
That's
cool.
about her. Wow.
Yeah, no, it was
Yeah.
a thing that.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I put
No,
a lot
I know.
of thought into
You
my
were pretty.
family.
You were pretty meticulous about the family. The
Except for Oliver.
the original name for your family or your mom's maiden name was like Cawthon.
Something like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, that's literally Matt's last name in the book. And you're like, no, okay. Well, maybe let's go Millen. I was like, that works. That works for me.
Macmillan and wife.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah.
No, you were very good at tying. Honestly, in the last episode, I had no idea where it was going to go. I had no idea
That you were going to be
Emily.
raised.
Well, Emily was going to be a dark friend. I had no idea
I,
she
so
was
I,
going to be.
I, like, I have to derail your
Yeah.
question a little bit to
Yeah.
ask you a question because, like, in the last bit of it, Paige went from like, "I've got this. I'm gonna be an Aes Sedai. This is just my mission." And cool, I could like hang out with this channeler, but like, I just kind of got to get with my sisters. And then, hey, I've won, to going to like, perhaps there's corruption in my organization. The guy that I was following blew himself up and betrayed me. I can't actually trust the person I thought I can trust. And like, what the hell?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that's the loose thread I want
What
to pick
the
up. It's like, did
flaming
Paige
hell?
go like supernova and try to blow up the White Tower? Like, what is Paige
Yeah.
doing? Like,
So it was. There was a moment. So lots of thoughts happening in my head.
Yeah.
But it was at the end. It was Paige's time with the tower have been difficult because she was found by Lucille, brought to the tower, and was under specific like supervision and guidance by Adelaide, who was very hard on her. And not only was Adelaide hard, but when she started, or when Paige started her mission, there was no feeling of like, you can do this if you work hard. It was, you shouldn't be even doing this. You're
Right.
the worst pick for this. And it
She was negging you.
like
legitimately.
which was
Right.
so good because honestly, more than being part of the Aes Sedai, it was or becoming a powerful major, whatever. It was Kashmiri finally proving herself, and it was this horrible feeling finding out that her sisters were much better at this than her, were faster than her, were more powerful, were getting better information. And I was like, what am I going to do? What is happening? And then realizing that this was kind of like a setup that Paige started behind the starting line, and just going crazy, was her finally fighting back that frustration. It was, she was scared that Lucille had fallen into it as well. She didn't really know.
Yeah.
yeah,
I was
but if we
a piece,
confirm
a
that
piece
she
of my
didn't.
heart was breaking every time during that combat where you're like, I cast wall of fire and I cast it around Lucille too, because in my head I was like, I was like, give me an insight check. Yeah, she looks like she's confused and she's like, don't hurt Cash.
Well, I think
And then she tried to cast Charm Person
that's
on
right.
you.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And,
Yeah,
and,
that-
and you were
that
like, she
confused me.
channeled on me, but I was like, she's the only one who was going to try and use a
That's
non-damaging
right.
spell.
She didn't do
you know?
anything mean, but I was like, if she's gonna try and stop me, I have to.
yeah.
I have
It's-
to go.
it's-
She's rest, in league
That's
with
right.
them,
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
knowing
that's
that
right.
like
Yeah.
she isn't corrupt, they're
Yeah.
corrupt, and she just is unaware.
She
Like,
doesn't
that's
know,
right.
yeah.
And it was. I always knew that it was never going to be. I was going to try and pacify Lucille without having to directly target her, but it was more. It wasn't against the tower. It was really against the vendetta she felt the tower had against her. And in that moment, she had a target,
Yeah.
a clear sign that someone had been messing with her.
But it was just this thing where it's like a Paige has been having such a fraught relationship with like Dirk, and even with like the rest of us to a certain degree, being like, I have secrets, I have a mission.
Yeah.
All right, okay, my mission is I have to go there and figure out what's going on. And then everyone's kind of like, oh god, okay. After all that was the secret. Okay. And then we get there, and your sisters are already there.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
What was all that for?
Yeah.
what's all that for? You just
I nearly
and
died
you-
at the
you
hands of my
gave-
allies
You
to
gave me a
try
gift
and get
because
here.
you were like, yeah, and I think I've probably been working in this inn for like already several weeks before Lior shows up. I was like, you're not doing your mission. You're procrastinating.
Yeah.
And so like also Adelaide, so the Blue Aja is the one with by far the biggest eyes and ears network, like the
Right.
best like boots on the ground, like information network of people who are not Aes Sedai,
okay.
like who just report to them and they're paid off to report to them. And so Adelaide, seeing the ability that you have with the voices, knows, oh my God, she's trying to train you to be a blue the whole time, but is so unbelievably frustrated at your personality that she's like, I have to do this. I have to see
Yeah.
if this works. And
Yeah.
became like not a great mentor, but was like, you're the
This-
best one for the job, unfortunately,
Yep.
you know? And so I loved that in the end. You were like, no, I'm going gray. You know?
Yeah.
Yours was the biggest, like, I don't know what you're going to do at the end of this fight. So
I
that one, I just had to be ready to improv. Like, what do you want to do after this, you know?
I had a prologue written where she leaves and goes to a town close to the coast and opens up an inn called the Hasty Ogier. And the hasty is written with like a D, so it kind of looks like hasted Ogier. And
my God.
she spends her time there.
And all the staff have coats with buckles.
Everyone has beautiful coats. Like
In fact, it's part of the uniform.
stupidly opulent.
Everyone's got a
coats.
big, gorgeous coat.
Yeah, way too hot, but still.
Middle of summer, don't care where's your coat.
But I felt the choice of the grays was like,
Yeah.
it was very consistent because like Paige kept like reiterating this thing about like true power is like by being the one calling the shots,
Sorry.
and everyone's like, Paige, you're just saying a lot of words and you're not really doing much. And Paige is like, no, I'm doing a lot, guys.
Doing a lot of work.
I'm moving the shadows, dog.
and then to get to the point where you're like, no, this is like the Aja for me. Like, I'm going to influence not through power, not through brute force, but through like through words and conversation
communication and
shaping to this
and
vision
empathy. Yeah.
that I feel is underrepresented of like, just because they channel it doesn't necessarily make them the enemy or the dark
Yeah.
one, you know, like
Yeah.
it was just very cool. It felt, when it finally happened, I was like, that makes so much sense, but I couldn't see it happen until it did. So it was cool.
Before I get reincarnated, can I haunt her as like a force ghost?
100%.
Just
Thank you.
another voice. You're already there, Dirk.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
already
like,
in there.
At some points, you're like, oh, all these voices, I remember them, and then you just hear, hey, is this working?
just the eyes. Like,
It just sounds like you, but less stressed. That's even more infuriated. Well,
I have one last question.
yeah,
for you,
hit me
Brad.
with one last question.
It's kind of one that might cap it off.
okay.
I'm not sure if you felt like going longer into
No,
this,
no,
but
I was getting ready to wrap.
Yeah,
but
yeah, we've been
I can
Perfect.
answer another one.
it's in the far-flung future.
Good
Were you
alliteration, first of all.
Thank you. I worked on this for hours.
Yes.
If you were to DM another arc in the same universe,
Oh wow.
what is one thing that you would absolutely bring back from this arc? And a follow-up is, what is something
man.
that you had as an idea but didn't end up using in this arc from this universe?
Something that I had as an idea but didn't end up
For
using.
instance, you brought in the Drakkar at the end, which were so cool. I wasn't sure
Yeah.
if we were going to see them. Something.
Oh no, like for me it was like, what are the monsters that we see in the first session? Because like, or in the first book rather, because like this world is a lot of people fighting each other, you know, and that's great, but it also does get old in a low magic setting, right? Like you can only throw so many melee combatants and occasionally some spellcaster.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, really, like, I told all you guys, like, in an event that someone else was running this world, I would have played an Illuminator. Like, that would have been a character
cool.
I want to play who's just, like, constantly setting off fireworks and stuff like that, you know? Someone who's run away with guild secrets and all that.
Yeah.
So, like, bringing stuff like that in was fun. But no, like, I wanted to make sure, how many different things can we tackle here, you know? There are things that pop up in some of the other books that aren't... I don't even want to say it's like a spoiler, because it's just a symptom of the world, and like the Dark Ones touch on the world, is these little bubbles of evil they're referred to, where things just start going wrong. You know, there's one town where like everybody dies every day and wakes up the next day Groundhog style, like it didn't happen. Like they could all violently murder each other and they all wake up the next day totally normal. There are sections where like things sort of come to life and start hurting people. There are sections where
Is that
like,
where the rocks come from?
yeah, well, that's what that was. That was a pocket of evil. The nightmare fight was another bubble of evil. So why are these things following you? It's because the Dark One's had his eye on you already. Because now is getting close to the time when somebody should be revealing themselves. So he's got his eye on everybody.
It was so
But-
funny.
The rocks.
The whole campaign, I think I was like, oh yeah, the Dark One's finally here. Like, I bet you like it's not even me. I bet you like it's following Paige with her voices, or like maybe Tal has a secret. And then like
100%
you
you.
gave me a dream or something. I was like, oh yeah, it's like 100% me.
Yeah, and at
It's
that point,
100%
at that point, he already knows it's not you, but he thinks he can use you.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, he's
yeah.
like, I'll have a better
makes
chance of,
sense.
you know.
Yeah.
So definitely, like the most variety I could pack in as possible. So yeah,
Yeah,
Drakkar,
awesome.
we're definitely making it. If I had to run another arc in this world, I would honestly probably just try to imagine something further back. Because from this point forward, this is like sort of a prequel to the book,
Yeah.
really. You know, like in terms of like
like
this,
almost
this happens essentially immediately before the events of the book, or like kind of the timing works out such as
barely-
Logain is
yeah.
leaving Gildan at the time that Rand and the Two Rivers people are celebrating Winter Night, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like it sort of lines up before all the events of the book. From here on, the events of the book become like really, you know, like what could I run? I could probably run a like political intrigue campaign
Great
with like
game,
in Kyrian
Yeah.
like great game style.
Oh, yeah.
I could, but it's all very yes, but it's all things that are like the major events and things that happen in this world from this point on. It's like, and then Brand's there.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, that's true.
So I would probably go way back. I would
Yeah.
probably go into like sort of like Calamity style, like
Yeah.
Age of Legends.
Interesting,
Like
yeah.
things are bad. You guys are high level. There is maybe no taint yet.
Interesting.
That's really interesting.
Perhaps later on from that, you know, you go into like the 100 Years War after Arthur Hawkwing dies, you know. So I would go further back. I think I would do that and have it be like the stakes are bad, and you guys. It's not going to be like, oh, Dirk dies, but I think you guys can all make it. It would be, again, much more like EXU Calamity style. Like,
Yeah.
Everybody does.
you guys are probably all going to die unless someone gives me a really good explanation as to why you don't. You know?
Yeah.
So I would probably go further back just because the world is so fleshed out from here that I wouldn't want to tamper with anything.
You found
that-
like the perfect thing to,
Yeah.
to fit in
Nice.
right before the big story. I thought it was very well chosen.
That's and that's exactly it, you know. And I didn't want to like. There's a couple things, and this is like spoilers for like book 2, I want to say, but like there's a couple of things that I like stopped myself from saying at the end. Like when you were in the White Tower being raised, by that point, Logain has already been brought to the tower and has been gentled and is like held as basically a prisoner, but is just free to walk the grounds because he's no harm to anyone, and he just does so sadly. So like I had to be like, you look at a very familiar frame that is more hunched over with the curly hair and a proud look that is all but gone. You know, like I
Can't
just
imagine a meeting between Paige,
well, that's exactly it. Like,
Kashmiri the
That's
Aes
crazy.
Sedai,
yeah, because he would probably
Logain the Gentle.
well, because here's the thing about Logain too. Like he like has a part to play in this story still, you know, like even though he is a prelude character, he has a part to play in this story. And I don't think, with what I know of the character, if you have saved his life this many times, he'd never give you up. You know, like if it's in his control at all, even if he did run into you, he would act like he didn't know you, you know?
Yeah.
Stand up
Yeah.
guy.
So no, I think, you know, in another turning of the wheel, I would maybe throw that bad boy in reverse and skirt out of here. But yeah,
cool.
I mean, like, also just like as a note, like what a wild ride, man. Like
It was
we
crazy.
came into this going, guys, tight 12 to 15 episodes. Can you imagine this in 12 episodes? I thought there was like a realm of possibility, and then I was like, this is stupid. No way.
No.
But like I'm so glad it went way longer, because like it wound up being so much more of a fulfilling story.
100%.
I feel like I learned a lot about like I study English literature and all that, and it's all like motifs and stuff like that, but in terms of like how to put that into practice, you know, and like it literally paid off in school. Like this was my best academic year ever because I'm a good writer now. I'm a better writer, but like just like seeing all the decisions that like you guys made, that like just like, what if you just like tug at this thread, where does that lead? Like It just
it's
has me
always so
like
much fun.
so excited for like what we do next and like what story we all get to tell next. And like if I have one piece of advice, it's like definitely don't leave 4 factions of bad guys for the final fight. That was stressful, so don't do it.
Don't do it. Won't do
It's
it.
gonna be a chunky zode.
It's gonna be a chunky zode, and this was a chunkier zode than I anticipated too.
Yeah, I thought we were all gonna have like 2 questions, and then
I mean, I did have 2 questions for everyone.
Yes, honestly, we could probably keep going for a while.
I
but
could go for another hour.
you know, I think that's maybe for a different book, not one that's a different turning of the page of the wheel, the page of the lure, of the towel, of the dirk. But I think that, you know, after about a year and a half of planning for me, that about caps the Dragon's Might. So thanks for
thank you, Brad.
Thanks for playing, guys. What a good time. Oh, stop. I'd be nothing without you. But if you've been, listen, we don't know what this is going to be like if we even put this out. If anyone's watching, thank you for watching. But if anything else, this was
one viewer.
This was a fun chat, and I'm glad you guys clearly we all cared about this world enough to go off about it, not only for half an hour every night after we wrap, but for a couple hours today.
When you're done watching this, Mom, just press the repeat button. It's going to give us more views.
Yeah, if you like, and please, to my parents and 2 sisters, please hit that like and subscribe. But I think that's going to be about it for us. Hopefully, you won't be hearing, it won't be too long until you hear from us again as we launch in with another story to tell in another world. Yeah. Until then, and I'm going to finally get to stop saying this, I have been Brad.
I have been.
And this has been Who's Taking Watch.
Oh, we're not going around. I just did that.
See you later.